to see if he was barefoot. Is that still the case? Is he barefoot? Because I know on Facebook somebody posted a picture of these could be his shoes, or is that so he is presumed to be barefoot at this point?
What I can say is that his mom says all of his shoes are accounted for at the house. I'm not going to say that he's barefoot.
All right.
Allegedly!
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Lady Freedom here coming at you with another raw narrative. Here's a brief disclaimer for tonight's show. Let's watch.
That's ignorant! Allegedly, that's ignorant! Ignorant.
Judgment, Alfred.
Chloe, you read my thoughts. You've got the shinin.
You mean shining?
Shh! You wanna get sued?
Judgment, Alfred.
You just use that shin of yours to call me and I'll come a-running. But don't be reading my mind between 4 and 5. That's Willie's time.
Hey, yo, father. I love him when he does that.
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Lady Freedom here coming at you with another raw narrative. And I see a lot of people in here tonight and I didn't get to the first people that came in. So thank you very much. I'm always so grateful for everyone that comes in and says hi before the live or, you know, lets me know if you guys smash the like button. So thank you so much. But I saw, not in this order, of course, Couponing, Baba Rose. I saw Blessed. I also saw Anne. Good to see you guys in here. Trishy. Also saw Lori, Town Chat Cafe, Denise, Show Poodles, Forget Me Not, Michelle, and everyone that's in here. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm so glad to be here myself. Hey Audrey, good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. I can see some of these ones in here. But tonight I'd like to talk about, I mean, there was like a 5-hour live today on Granny, but I didn't clip any of it, except for a sound bite kind of a thing. Hey Holly S, because she had mentioned an ad in Forever 21. Good to see you. So I wanted to just clip this little piece in there because she said she wanted to put it on a members only, and then I was like, well, maybe she doesn't want it out there. And then I didn't have enough time to go back and check because I was still kind of listening in. I kind of had to rewind some parts, but as I was listening, I just took some notes and I figured we could talk about that tonight. And I don't know if all of you had a chance to go over there and listen, but Chris Proudfoot did make an appearance on Granny today, you know, and just talked about a lot of different things, right? Just kind of too many really topics to kind of break down. Trishy, that's what I felt like. That's me right there all day. I'm like, what is going on? And I was like, I didn't, and I don't want to be rude and like play any of it up here if she's deciding or whatever. And I just didn't want to do that. So I figured I'll just write some notes as I'm listening, just kind of listen through and, just kind of trying to see what I could find, right? So, some of the topics are going to be like the food train, which, of course I could chuckle at that because, I mean, you could tell that they really like stayed in and not really, went out too much. And, um, that shows. And then Chris talks about some positives on YouTube, but the last time that I heard an interview, and I could be wrong that it wasn't like the very last interview or very last time he, went up on a panel over here on YouTube. But he kind of tells us a little bit about what he's learned from other creators and named a couple of creators in that mix. So I wanted to talk about that. And then we have HIPAA, HIPAA. Let's see, we have Chris obviously doesn't understand the autism spectrum. Let's see. And then that's where we get our soundbite. And then we also get, the fact that all the while, that they're doing these interviews and they're really wacky interviews, right? They're not like, let's find Sebastian, going over the details of the night, going over the details of the day before, weeks before, anything like that. They are always these weird things like food train, right? Which is really nice to, thank people for bringing you food when you're in a time of need. But I found that kind of stuck out to me in a couple of different ways. But Chris says, quote, when you're involved in things like this, you have to be reminded you got to eat, you got to sleep, right? And I can't say that he's wrong there because that is common when people are in a traumatic situation, sure. And that's why people would bring over a food train because they know that you're not wanting to cook or you don't have time. But I thought it was weird that he used this distancing language when he says, when you are involved in things like this. So he puts it on to everybody else saying, when you're involved, not he's involved, like, right? He's distancing himself. But then we also hear him say in things like this, right? In things like this. He doesn't say when your child is missing, when you have a missing child. And we can go back through so many interviews. I was going to come up with some kind of an example, but I figured, the most recent example, and I know a lot of you follow DD, right? Deception Detective. So Kyron Horman's mother, right? She is always spreading awareness about him. He is still missing. He is still out there. And with this step parent, right, being involved in things like this, again, he's distancing himself from the situation and he's not even mentioning the actual situation that he's in. Things like this, he says instead. And then you have to be reminded, right, to eat and sleep, understandably so. Because, I mean, I know that when we saw Seth and the look on his face whenever he was on America's Most Wanted, you could see the bags under his eyes. You could see that he was tired and weary and just wanted his son back, so it's just really, really sad. It's just, and again, bragging about the food train. Hey, Brianna's World, good to see you. Hey, Meow. Hey, Meg, good to see you. I'm trying to see. Sorry, guys. I was seeing your hellos in here, and I was just wanting to make sure I didn't miss anything. Good. Good to see all of you guys coming in. Hey, Cinderella. Hey, Show Poodles, if I didn't say hi. Babs, good to see you, Babs. Babs says neither of them have missed a meal. That's for sure. Well, and that's kind of why I chuckled at first, so because I was like, he's like, one of the best things about this has been. He says it in such a weird way too, and I'm not going to quote him because, like, you know, obviously I don't have the direct quote, but you know, he's kind of like saying like one of the best things about this whole situation has been the food train, and I'm like, yeah, it does, you know, appear that that's been, you know, a very, you know, good time for you. And Michelle says CP got a little pissy at deception detective sounds to me in one interview. Then seemed deception detective went 10 toes down on both of them. That's funny, Michelle. He stood 10 toes down. You know, he really should. He's really good at what he does. And I mean, he's very intelligent. It's not like he's getting up there like a blathering, you know, imbecile and just spouting shit off. He's actually getting up there and, you know, telling us why, showing examples. I need to get one of those decks. That is so cool. Bob Rose says BS. He has not missed any meals, snacks, or drinks, and neither has KK. Well, and I'd have to agree. Excuse me. There, because, you know, it just seems like they're not doing anything besides staying put wherever they're at, right? I don't even know, and it's been alleged that they went to a barbecue festival or something like that, right? But, you know, and I don't fault them for going places. I don't fault Seth for going places. You have to. You're right. You have to go on, so to speak. But I also think that all of your time really, I mean, I would consume my efforts and time trying to find my child, especially, you know, a year and a half can arguably be, you know, very, very long or very, very short, you know, and we're kind of at that point here. So, but yeah, Baba Rose, that's what made me chuckle about the food truck. And then Chris just kind of, you know, he's got a missing stepson and he's like, man, that food truck's good. You know, it's insanity. Thanks, couponing. It's so good to see all you guys. And Bab says, and of course, KP hasn't even said, I wonder if Sebastian has eaten. That's a great point. Does he not have his meds? She knows the answer to both. Well, Chris talked a little bit about the medications today, and I'll play this clip really quick because it does kind of coincide with it, and it's real short. Again, I just don't feel like Chris understands autism. He has a lot of issues with the way that he presents Sebastian, in my opinion, portrays Sebastian, in my opinion. But here's this little short clip because thanks, Babs. That made me think of this, and we'll play it again later because it's short and it pertains to another subject. But yeah, his medications and basically that people wouldn't be able to handle Sebastian without them was kind of the statement that he made, but it kind of goes with this little ditty right here too, and it's just disparaging.
Very high functioning.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's why, like, I was trying to just put it out there. It's like everybody has come up with this idea, and that's not the case. Mm-hmm. People would know Sebastian. Like, if we had never said he was autistic, people would not have a clue that Sebastian was autistic. They would thought something was wrong with him and not ever said autism.
Right. And you know what? If he...
They think something was wrong with him. Well, I've seen videos of Sebastian, and I never thought that there was something wrong with him. I've seen videos of Chris, and I definitely know that there's something wrong with him. So there's that. And that's my opinion. Hey, Brianna's World, thank you. Hey, Canadian True Crime Channel. Good to see you. Or Canadian True Crime 2024. Oh, goodness, guys. It's probably going to be a bad night for me reading. I'll tell you what. today was a long day, and especially when I have to listen to things that I don't particularly like or that made me, you know, when things like that kind of take your energy, they kind of steal your energy away, right? It's really negative and vile and foul, and you're just like, oh, this is foul, right? And you're just like, and so 5.5 hours of it is a lot. Hey, Napa Noche Father, good to see you. Yeah, so it's just a lot, and it's crazy. Adam Forever 21 says, why the hell he even do all the talking? Hello, get a clue. Yeah, um, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And, that brings me to another point that I wrote down here was the HIPAA stuff. He's backtracking on, you know, what he said, what he stated, and everybody talking about HIPAA and how he was basically hiding behind this HIPAA, right? Nonsense, which he definitely was, because in the first interview on Judges for the Missing, hey Audrey Marie, in the first interview with Judges for the Missing, which was what, March 7th? Katie's sitting right next to him, fake crying. She was there for the interview, so it has nothing to do with Chris being a step parent and not being able to violate HIPAA law because Sebastian's not his child, and so he's not allowed to talk about medications. That would have been the time when they would have said, Katie, would you like to share which medication Sebastian's on? Or if Katie's of sound mind and, she can hear and she's sitting right there, then maybe she could have just said, I would rather not share my son's medication, because I understand that. I probably wouldn't either, to be very honest with you all. There are some things that need to be private, or that really should be private, to keep somebody's dignity intact, right? But that's kind of why I made the Kung Fu fighting video too, because people need to start respecting other people's healthy boundaries, right? There's all the healthy boundaries is like, if you wouldn't like it done to you, then why would you do it to yourself? Or why would you come in a chat and ask somebody how it feels that it's being done to them, when they know they could just ask themselves how they would feel and they would have their answer right there. So it's just that really yucky, nasty stuff, right? But let's just be really quite honest. When they did their internet world debut, whatever you want to call it, because they never talked to media in the first 7 days, Katie could have answered those questions. And then instead, here we are, about a year and a half later, right? After Sebastian disappeared, and Chris is backtracking and saying, I was right the whole time. It's Tennessee law. No, that's not right, because Katie could have answered. She could have answered. She was sitting right there. So that absolutely makes no sense. You are a buffoon, and do better, I guess. If you don't want people to think badly of you, why do you get up here and spew all this bullshit instead of talking about Sebastian like you should be? Make it make sense. The math ain't mathin', whatever. I don't know Brianna's world, and he's saying he wasn't there, so why would he ever talk about it? Maybe if it pertained to the phone conversation or the three-way 911 fiasco that they want us to believe, and all of this, because we've even found discrepancies there. You didn't see that live, Lori? Oh my gosh. No, your face should be, you should have a smiley face instead. You should have a smiley face instead. Oh Lord. It was long and, daunting. And I was like, I'm so tired. Like, this is terrible, terrible, terrible. It's just a lot. And, some of the things, that they will, put out are valuable things, right? But another thing that really bothered me, I'm just going to go off tonight. Watch this. Okay. So another thing that really bothered me was that it was a while back, and I meant to grab the date before I came up. But here's the flyer that I made because I was getting really frustrated. I know the last couple lives we were talking about, like basically how in the beginning, I think it was Sasha. I was trying to recall who it was, but either way, I think Sasha was talking to us about how, you know, was he wearing a sweatshirt or a long sleeve black shirt? You know, it's changed around. What's going on? And I'm like, yeah, that was a big deal in the beginning. You know, that we were getting misguided information. And I also did a video about how the flyers were different, right? All of the flyers were coming out with different information, and it was really kind of chaotic and, again, nonsensical. So I got tired of complaining, and I made this flyer, and, you know, it's just all the pictures of Sebastian, like a little collage, and have you seen me, you know, and I did a tribute video for Sebastian. And some guys were nice enough that did an Eddie Vedder cover, were nice enough to allow me to use their music for it. So definitely go check it out, and I'll link it in the description. But it was months and months ago that I put this out, and I thought it was really strange because Chris Proudfoot was saying that, you know, somewhere on a panel, and I don't know what the date of the panel was, but they were like, oh, that was just so great that you put identifying features out there. But I never saw them on a poster before, and I know I definitely made this, you know, quite a while ago. So it's just interesting to me that he would say something about it. And I'm maybe you guys can let me know if you know the date, and we can compare. But it's just so strange to me that they would bring that up about Sebastian's identifying features. And I don't remember them ever mentioning any of them. But either way, these are some of them that I put on this flyer that I made. You know, because I was so sick of complaining about not having any identifying features on any of the flyers when I was comparing them. And of course, when you compare things like that, you notice things, you know. But nevertheless, I found it to be one of the more odd parts of the interview, and I just kind of wanted to bring that up and show it to you guys tonight. Gosh, that was a long time ago. I'm still searching around for this. But either way, those are some of the ones that I could look and, you know, identify in some of the pictures and stuff like that. Because, of course, you know, like when people don't have tattoos and stuff like that, like I don't have any tattoos. You know, you go for birthmarks and things like that. You know, freckles, however you want to call it. I know that Katie came out quite early with the Naruto run. Okay, so that was 9 months ago. So that was 9 months ago. And you can see it like here. So if you guys want to check it out. And it's just bizarre, you know. They don't talk about a whole lot about stuff like that. And I don't know really why they're bringing it up now. Because 9 months ago, you know, it was in the beginning of the case. It's just bizarre. Oh, well, that's cool. That's cool, Lori. I like hearing those things because I don't get to catch everybody, obviously. You know, I can't go around and catch everybody, but I do like to mix it up. And if somebody sends me a clip or something or a timestamp, I'm like, oh, cool, I'll go watch it. Sometimes I get sucked into it, and that's what happened today. I was like, oh, here we go. Thank you, SCP Foundation. I really appreciate you. And Bab says, if it mattered to them that Sebastian was missing, and if they didn't already know where he is, they might act differently. That ship has sailed, in my opinion. Well, and that's how I feel too, you know. I mean, just with the identifying features and kind of going up there, but it's all jumbled into this mess too of like a 5-hour live that is talking about really Chris a whole lot, creators, Chris like saving face or trying to backtrack and say that like, he got HIPAA right for Tennessee law. Because of course, he knows Tennessee law better than anybody. It seems like, he's always quoting Tennessee law. Hey, Sammy. And Sammy. And, he's always quoting the Tennessee laws and acting like he's Mr. Know-it-all. And then he always talks in a very condescending tone where he's acting like he's like teaching us something or showing us something that we didn't know, or, something that we really should be listening to. It's very strange. Yeah, I don't know. Sammy says, oh yeah, when they're talking about his moles, what was that for? Yeah, it was weird because it's like they never did that in the beginning. Like that should have been on Duchess, right? Like that's day one shit, right? In my opinion. It really is. And it's just so odd. And that's even like, holes in their story, but just holes in the whole entire thing, because what parent gets up there and talks about all of these other things, right? And, it's just weird. Again, you don't know what you're going to get when you're going to listen to the Proud Feet. You know what I mean? You never know what you're going to get. And then he was, like I said, he was naming the positives of the situation of Sebastian's disappearance. And then he was naming some negatives with the YouTube creators. So he said that some of us do an amazing job, an open perspective, that it brings an open perspective into the case, right? He said that's welcome to him, but he said some of us are also stupid. And he said, and I think he was referring to maybe possibly Betty, because let's be honest. I mean, there's been a lot of people that have went over there and drove by creators. We all kind of know who they are because we've probably seen them drive by. Which again, I don't think that that's proper, but I mean, people are curious about where Sebastian went missing from, and the Proud Feet are extremely secretive about it. And I think if they would have just been like how a normal parent would have been, I don't think they would have brought attention to themselves. But since they keep it so secretive, it's really odd to people. And I think that's really what the intrigue or allure is about going to their home. Also speculating. So he doesn't like that. Obviously, no one does. And then he also says that it's dangerous because people don't know who they're dealing with. And, I would have to agree. You don't know who you're coming up on. You don't know if someone has a weapon. You don't know if somebody has, PTSD or CPTSD to where, they're going to go into fight or flight mode, right? And most of the time you'll go into fight mode if that's what your typical norm is, or baseline, right, is. Like if you're usually the one that will fight, okay, that's what it's going to trigger you, and that's going to be the outcome. If you're the one that chooses flight and to run, then that's what you're going to do. You might even assess the situation and have that time to process it and think it through. You never know. So obviously, it's never a good situation to roll up on someone at their house. Obviously, it's wrong, and it's not a good idea for either party. And then we, get into the court litigation and things like that. So, public property is public property, though. So, like, if you're, in the area and you drive past their house, when you don't do anything, you just drive past their house, it's not illegal, to do that. So a lot to unpack and a lot to think about. Denise says, y'all, 4 months ago, my appendectomy came up done after 3 years. Got a bad infection. Oh my goodness, Denise. Had to go. Oh goodness. I'm sorry to hear that, Denise Harris. Brianna's World says KP could be a stop to some of the BS, and she won't. I can even respect her because if she won't speak up for Sebastian now that he is missing, then I am sorry. That shows me that she doesn't care. Right. I agree. I agree, Brianna's World. That's so true. And, you know, she won't come out and say much of anything, especially when it comes to accusations about Seth. She'll let people say really horrible things, you know, about Seth, and she will never come out and defend that, right? We saw Yada come out and defend Seth, and, you know, I have to say I do believe her. I don't know what happened between people. We're all just people, right? So, you know, you might have some kind of, you know, interaction or partnership or relationship or whatever with another person, and it doesn't work out. And you know, it's upsetting if it's, you know, a loved one or whatever. But just in life and in general, you know, we have business relationships, we have partnerships where, you know, we're trying to help, and so we're just lending a hand. There's a lot of people in Sebastian's case that are really trying to genuinely help and donate their time and resources to finding him. I believe that. I believe that when I see the billboards. I believe that when I see people passing out flyers. I believe that when I see people talking about Sebastian and telling his story and analyzing the details, right? Because we see a lot of creators that are doing that. And, you know, hats off to you guys, right? Because I don't think any of us are necessarily stupid. I think that some of us just have different intentions than others, right? I think some of us, the allure was, you know, at the point of Dog the Bounty Hunter, right? You know, he's out there and he is someone who is very well known. And some people thought if they, you know, got close to one side or the other, they might have a benefit to that, right? And some people are doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. Some people because they care. Some people just want Sebastian to be found. There's a lot of different reasons out there, right? So it's, you know, hey Lolo, good to see you. Thank you for being here. Denise says, I believe Katie and Chris Proudfoot know exactly where Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers is. You know, I believe so as well. There's a couple of reasons why I believe that. You know, and we kind of went over that last night too, Denise. So I also found it really strange. I don't know. Maybe you guys can help me recall if you guys can remember someone off the top of your head. But in a true crime case, I've never seen, you know, people talk about how they have gotten influence from creators and things like that, right? But Chris is talking about it here. He says that he has learned that TV views are not as great these days, and that getting your story out onto YouTube is a better approach because most people get their info from creators. And he said that creators taught him that, and then he referenced Clue and Cletus when he said that. And I just found that to be interesting for a couple of different reasons. One, I don't know, statistically, I did not look up what would be better. I can say that, you know, if you get your child's story and your child's face out into the public eye as quickly as possible and to as many different places as possible, that is the key, in my opinion. So that includes and is not limited to social media, you know, news outlets, anybody who will listen, right? Someone on the street, here's a flyer, please. If you know anybody who looks like this person, contact law enforcement. If you see a 16-year-old boy, you know, that's what we need to be saying these days, because Sebastian had a birthday and it's been a few months after his birthday, right? December 7th was his birthday. And so he's 16. So we have to say, you know, there's a 16-year-old out there, right? and he's missing, and there's a reward. Hey, little Miss Sharon, good to see you. But you know what I mean? Hey, Astrology for Mystics with Jen, it's so good to see you. You know, and that sort of thing. It's just crazy. Sorry, I just had an idea and I wrote it down, and I probably missed my train of thought there. Bab says, I wish he'd say I mouthed off to the wrong person and I got this broken HIPAA. Gotta tend to it. That's hilarious. I love that. Mouth off to the wrong person and I got a broken HIPAA. Gotta tend to. Oh my goodness. Well, you know, and I just think it's just, well, speaking of standing 10 toes down, since somebody had mentioned that earlier, you know, I mean, he really is going to do that now. And he's going to like backtrack and be like, oh yeah, you know, no, that's not an excuse for you guys not saying that. Now, if you want to say, hey, I want to keep that private, again, you know, boundaries, people, healthy boundaries. We have to remember that people are not going to want to give us their personal information. And it's really not nice to, you know, go and kind of dig it up unless it's going to help the case, right? But again, Chris uses that, you know, chance to kind of disparage Sebastian and say that like he would be so awful to deal with off of his medications. But we also know that that's not how Seth has perceived Sebastian or described him. And that's not how many people describe Sebastian. And, you know, to my knowledge, these medications, some of them were newer, is what they've said previously. So, again, it's just another way to kind of, you know, dig the knife a little deeper, you know, say something rude about Sebastian and say, oh, that was twisted. No, it wasn't twisted. It wasn't twisted. And Brianna's World says, what parent degrades their own child? I mean, all KP and CP say about Sebastian is not so good, and shame on them. Yeah, I agree, Brianna's World. I agree. The only one that has told us most about Sebastian is Seth. Yeah, and I mean, he's told us a lot about Sebastian, and none of it's like in a disparaging kind of a way, or in a way exactly that's degrading or, you know, mean-spirited. You can just feel the how mean it is, you know, like what their intentions are behind it, in my opinion. Just tone and everything like that. And Astrology for Mystics with Jen says, CP, in my opinion, would rather talk to Texana stirring stuff up and go after BHB with her. It's shady, weird, and distracting. Absolutely. That should have been the title for my for this live. It should be I'll use it in the future if you don't mind, Jen. It should be called Shady, Weird, and Distracting. And it is because that's what we're seeing a lot of, especially with these very long, drawn out lives, right? Where there's like information in there, there's some good kind of nuggets, but then it's just, you know, basically you have to like go through a pile of trash to get to them. You know what I mean? It's kind of like looking for gold in a dump. You know, you might find a little nugget here and there, but you know, it's crazy. And it's shady because of that. It's weird because all of the stuff that's brought up is very strange. Like you said, Texana, you know, this lady that goes to, for those of you who don't know, Texana goes to the vigil and she is not wanted there. They go there just to stir the pot. They go there just to cause trouble at Sebastian's vigil, right? Because it's about Sebastian, not about them. And again, these people want attention. I don't know if they think it's going to make them famous. If they like the fact that people talk about them, you know, it doesn't matter, like, you know, whether it's positive or negative. They just want people to talk about them. And, you know, just stir the pot, you know, and it's absolutely wrong. Again, BHB is another person, Bullhorn Betty, who spreads awareness to Sebastian's case, to many other cases. She has covered a ton of different cases, you know, and they would rather make it about Texana, BHB, you know, anybody but the Proud Feet, right? They're trying to take the focus off of themselves and then definitely off Sebastian, right? Because if they muddy it up so much, they think that people will get frustrated and stop wanting to hear about Sebastian's case. You know, it's shady, weird, distracting. Thanks, Jen. And Bab says, girl, we know that is not what CP meant. Absolutely. Absolutely. Adam Forever 21 says, cowardly mother, in my opinion, sorry. Sick-minded spouse going on channels talking nasty shows. Yeah, he's a true upstanding citizen behavior, in my opinion. Well, and see, that's the thing, Adam Forever 21. I agree with what you're saying here, too. And I do think it's cowardly and sick-minded. Some of the things that have been said just recently, right? We heard some of them here. You know, I made that one video that was just, you know, I mean, I'm surprised that it was even allowed to be replayed. You know, it was pretty bad. Like, I'm surprised they even let me replay it. But I wanted to show, you know, the real Chris Proudfoot, because I knew he was going to go on America's Most Wanted and act like, you know, he's just this, like you said, upstanding citizen. But really, he's, you know, gone to all of these channels, you know, and then also like recruiting other channels too, you know, to do his dirty deeds, in my opinion. And Michelle says, if in the situation she acts like this over her child, then when will Sebastian, was it with her really any different? Well, and you know, I don't think so. I think that the cold kind of, cold shoulder kind of behavior that we witnessed in the Texas Roadhouse video, I believe personally, Michelle, it was a part of Sebastian's everyday, you know, with Katie and Chris, you know, and then the walking on eggshells because Chris was such a, you know, rotten person. Hey, Judy, good to see you. Thank you for being here. You know, and it just, I don't know. I can only imagine that Sebastian probably dreaded going home. He might have liked having some time by himself after school. All of this is purely speculative, of course. And, you know, I just hate that. I hate that for him. I never want to think like that for him, that he had to ever deal with that kind of stuff. You know, thanks, Jen. So, yeah. Brianna's World says, I believe that Sebastian lived in a house of horror with KP and CP. I agree. Good night, Jen. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for dropping those links. I love when you're here because you always drop those awesome links. Or just the phone numbers, you know, to call. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Judy says, may you have a great night's rest, Jen. That's sweet, Judy. You guys are talking about cow cats. I'm serious over here. You guys are making me laugh. Town Chat Cafe says, I stepped away earlier, so not sure if you replied to this. Do we know if the lights above the garage were on, or if on or off that evening of the 25th when they came back home from the Texas Roadhouse? The lights above the garage. So it's been said by Chris and Katie that the lights above the garage are kind of always on, but it looks like they do turn off during the day. And I say that because I've seen pictures of the house at night when they're on, and then during the day they're off. But he told Katie that he told Nancy Grace that the lights were, I guess, you know, according to him, running lights were lighting up all the time, right? They never turn off, is what he said. They stay on. And so we don't really know what to believe. And I'm glad that you reiterated that to me, Tom Chat Cafe, because I did not see it earlier. So sorry about that. Sometimes if I scroll up too fast, it'll miss comments for me. But yeah, thanks for asking that. But yeah, that's kind of my interpretation of it. You know, and again, it's like it could be very simple by a question that, like, even Nancy asked that question. You know, well, we're the lights above the garage, were they motion sensor lights, or how did those lights, you know, work? And he could have said, well, you know, they're on a timer, and, you know, they turn on at nighttime and they turn off at night, right? But they're not particularly motion sensor where the motion makes them turn on, right? And that's a simple explanation to a very simple question. But we have all of this opposition from Chris, and he has to go into these long spiels. And then Katie said that that they didn't have any lights outside at all, except for her solar lamp lights that were in the garden, in the backyard. So she said those were the only ones that she had. But then again, they also had the light, you know, that there was like a light that was circled in a red circle. And I snapped it from somewhere. I can't even remember where it was now. But either way, it hangs right by their front door. You know, so there's a light fixture right out there, and that light wasn't on either. You know, their porch light, so to speak, in the front yard, on the front door. Babs, be here all week. Adam Forever 21 says, but they wouldn't act like that trash on the national news compared their behavior with Nancy Grace. Yeah, to the crap YouTube channels. Well, and that's the thing. You know, I agree with that 100,000%. You know, it's like we see the different attitudes that are taken. You know, when they're on channels like this, we hear foul things being said about Sebastian. I don't think that, you know, America's Most Wanted heard a clip of even something rude like I played earlier that Chris said, you know, which I'll play it again because it does fit with another subject, you know. And Brianna's World says, yes, I always have a sick feeling in my stomach when I have to hear CP's voice, knowing how he talked and treated Sebastian. Well, we know it's coming, Brianna's World, and I believe, you know, I agree with you. I really do. I believe that Chris knows, you know, that he's being repulsive, and he is, and it does. It's like we know that he's going to say something rude, even when he's mild-mannered, right? He might be being very mild-mannered at the time, but then we know that it's the calm before the storm, and he's going to say something. And then other times he might just slide like something rude in there, you know, like Chris obviously doesn't understand the autism spectrum, and he can be very rude when he's describing it. And he I don't think that he realizes maybe how offensive he's being at the time, because I think he does have a level of ignorance, but it still doesn't excuse the behavior, in my opinion. Michelle says, by describing him like a deer isn't too accurate either. In this case, sometimes you have to be brutally accurate, not in a mean way, but very factual with info to help get better idea who Sebastian really is. Yeah, well, I think, Michelle, that they cut the interview to smithereens. If I could take a wild guess, I think the America's Most Wanted interview, in my opinion, was cut to smithereens. I don't think that they had the proper information, and it was probably very difficult to piece that news piece together, in my opinion. I mean, the Proud Feet weren't even at their house, and then you have the father of the missing child who has his whole bedroom ready and set up for them to come in and take photos and everything. Seth told us about that. And then you have the place where he's gone missing. They won't allow America's Most Wanted in there. Think about that. You know, I'm still waiting for, you know, John Walsh to get on and be like, we got those dirt bags, you know, in my opinion, allegedly, of course. Because honestly, I mean, if we just look at that, that's the America's Most Wanted that I know and like to watch. So it's weird. Tom Chat Cafe says, forget me not. And I guess, you know, I guess, sorry guys. I guess there's a first time for everything. And maybe like, I don't know, because it really blows my mind. We spoke about this yesterday a little bit, and I probably a time or two before, since the interviews come out, but it's kind of like, it's just odd how wrong they got it. And then I never thought that I'd ever be watching America's Most Wanted and they'd be interviewing the perpetrators that I suspect, you know, in my opinion, right? And they're up there and then they're like doing the weird, creepy car thing. And they're just like, at the kitchen counter, da da da. And people were like, oh, that's like a cooking show. It looks like America's Most Wanted cooking show. And I'm like, oh my God, it did. Because like they're in some random kitchen and you can tell the, you know, the area is staged wherever they were at, you know, very empty, very cold. Like it definitely wasn't their home. We all know that wasn't Sebastian's home, like all of us that follow the case. And it was just kind of like, I don't know. Right? Yeah. Weird. And Judy says, I have meatloaf going through my head now. I'm never going to find gold on a sandy beach. Yes, Judy. Thank you. I mean, it's just like, nope, no, it's not right. And it's super fishy. And then everybody that watched it was real disappointed. And, you know, the more I think about it, so am I. Especially when I hear Chris again today, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to send that clip over and be like, does this seem normal to you? Excellent tune, Judy says. Yes, I love meatloaf. I love rock. And Bab says, much love and respect, lady and friends. Gotta hit the hay. Good night. Oh, I'm glad that your flu's gone, Babs. I'm so glad. Left behind the bronchitis. Oh no, upper respiratory. Oh goodness. Well, take care. Take care. Tea is good. Lemon and tea. Yeah. Oh, good night, Babs. Thanks so much for being here as always. Aw. Hey, Alicia Hot Wheels. Alicia Hot Wheels says, I heard CP said no parent deserves a child like Sebastian on some panel today. Does anyone know if that's true? I sure hope or pray it's not true. You know, no parent deserves a child like Sebastian. He said some pretty foul crap, and I didn't have a chance to kind of write it all down. I was in the middle of my day, right, listening in my buds and, you know, hitting the store and everything, and you know, that kind of stuff. So I don't recall that exact quote. I know that he was saying that Sebastian would be hard to handle off his medications if they weren't life threatening. Yeah. So I'm not sure about that, but you guys can maybe confirm in the chat. Yeah. No kidding, Lori. Well, no child deserves to have a step parent like CP. Well, and honestly, it's just, you know, questionable for his own daughter, really. I don't know why the judge would allow for, again, little Faith to have to go over there when Sebastian's still missing. I mean, she's old enough to kind of know what's going on, and to my knowledge, she does know what's going on. Michelle says, don't get me wrong. I hope Sebastian is found, but I'd hate to think going back to the life. So sad, allegedly. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what would happen if, I mean, I guess it would depend on the circumstance. I've not really thought that far ahead. I know that it's been speculated on pretty heavily. And the only reason I really haven't put a lot of thought into it, I guess, is because I think I think that if Sebastian was found, whatever state he was found in would determine what would happen next, right? Because, I mean, I'm sure the first thing that law enforcement is going to do after this long, time period is bring him home to his family, right? And that would be, Seth, Chris, Katie, whatever. You know, unless somebody had involvement and there was an arrest made, right? Because when they found Sebastian, he said, look, this is what happened to me. And then there would be arrest made, right? So maybe that he would go with whichever parent, whatever, right? Or if he was abducted, he would go to all of the parents, I'm sure, and then the rest would be sorted out. I would still hope that Chris would be charged with whatever abuse he rendered to Sebastian. No matter what, that should happen. In my opinion, I don't know what the statute of limitations is there. I don't. But do I think that he deserves to be charged with that? Yes, I do. Sure. Hey, Anna Marie. It's just there's too much not to. There's just too much not to. Hey, Miss Kim77, good to see you. Thanks for the green hearts and prayers for Sebastian. Thank you. Oh, well, sleep well, Judy. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Good night. And Show Poodle says, at first, KK told Nancy they were off and Edgar corrected her. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. She's like, oh, that's right. They do stay on, right? Yeah. Because she said the only ones that were on were the ones in the garden, right? The solar lamps or solar lights. And I'm thinking they're like the ones that you kind of stick in the ground and they're just kind of like, so you can see the sidewalk and stuff like that. Show Poodle says that at first KK told, oh, sorry, wrong one, Show Poodles. Thank you, Show Poodles. And Alicia Hotwheel says, well, in my opinion, Seth absolutely deserves a child like Sebastian. It is the puke feet that don't deserve Sebastian. I agree. I think they absolutely unequivocally took Sebastian for granted and didn't treat him or look at him as they should have, which was, a precious person who deserved much, much better than being bullied around in his own home and abused. And Starflower, good to see you, Starflower. Thank you for your super chat. She says the Proudfoots don't understand autism is a neurological type which has many advantages. Yeah, well, and there's a lot of people. Thank you, Starflower. And there's a lot of things. There's a lot of individuals out there, and there's a lot of things out there that are misconstrued when it comes to the spectrum, because it is hard to kind of understand that, right? That it's neurological, right? Neurotypical. There's a lot of different characteristics. There are a lot of, and nobody is the same, right? Everybody's unique, and the different qualities that people might have that are on the spectrum, it's just something that you're not really going to pinpoint. It's not going to be specific to Sebastian, right? Because, like, in terms of Sebastian being very high functioning, right? So most people, like, if you've never heard of autism before, right? And you just hear, okay, Sebastian's high functioning, you're not really going to understand what that means. You're going to be like, well, what does that mean, right? Well, that just means that, Sebastian does use full sentences, right? He is very, you know, neurotypical, right? He doesn't display a whole lot of characteristics that someone who is profoundly or severely autistic would, right? Or even in the middle, he's very advanced on the spectrum where he is able to, play games like Magic the Gathering, a very social game, right? And then a lot of times people struggle who are on the spectrum with, um, different social and emotional cues, right? Like eye contact being one of them. We discussed that too here on the show. Just basically that, they have to be told like it is proper to look at people, and not look down and things like that. And then there's therapies for that, right? So those things can be worked on. We also can't forget that Sebastian has a very rare chromosome deletion, right? And so we have to remember that too. And some of those qualities and characteristics kind of transfer over and mirror, or comorbidities is what it's called. Autism as well, right? Sebastian was diagnosed late. And that was another thing that was kind of really strange that on the panel, because they were saying that, it's a detriment to say that Sebastian's on the spectrum. I don't believe that's true. I think it's important to note that Sebastian is on the spectrum. I think it's important to note that Sebastian has a chromosome deletion, a rare chromosome deletion. And I also think it's important to note that Sebastian has a pocket of fluid on his brain, because those different abilities, right, or differences matter when we explain it to the public, because it also creates more urgency, right? Because this person needs help, a little bit more help from other people, right? He could probably teach us a lot. He could probably give us a lot of help himself. But in the same way, he needs extra attention. And so that needs to be known. So I would have to, disagree when someone would say, well, why even mention the autism? I wish that wasn't put out there, because I think it stunts who Sebastian is to people, or that people will put stereotypes onto him. People will do that no matter what. People will misconstrue situations. People will get it wrong. We all do it, right? We're all people. But I don't think that is correct at all. I just don't. We need to know those things. And we also need to know, about Sebastian, and the way he does have, a bowed out chest, if that's the case, because Chris was talking about that today. It's hard to know if we believe everything that comes out of Chris's mouth, or what can we, what we can believe, or when he's just trying to be disparaging, Does this seem normal to you? Well, Miss Sharon, no, not at all. Sammy says this is the second or third time today I've heard that someone heard that. See, that's awful. That's awful. Hey, Billy B for you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Always on MT72 says it's 12:45 a.m. I'm turning in late. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. Nice to see you. Town Chat Cafe says, in my opinion, no child deserves treatment either. Like, no, nobody deserves to be treated that way. Absolutely not. Blessed says, buffoonery. It all stems from the actions of a buffoon, in my opinion. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, he acts like he understands the autism spectrum when not understanding it. He is always trying to tell us something, Adam Forever 21 says, in my opinion, America's Most Wanted knows, and they purposely did that way to follow behaviors of them. Oh gosh, I pray that's true, Adam Forever 21. Yeah, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. you know, obviously it's just so incredibly strange to me. Like, I never thought I would ever watch America's Most Wanted and think, you got it wrong. You know, you're talking with the people right now, you know? I just never did. Yeah, Lori says exactly. And I think Nina is truthful with her. I think she is too. I think she is too. And it seems like she wants her to have like a good, healthy grasp on the situation. I mean, that has to be so incredibly hard, you know, to tell beautiful little Faith, like, look, you know, your big brother's not there and we don't know where he is. And then I'm sure she's thinking about him all the time. Like, where is he? Did he come home? You know, like, it's so absolutely so sad. It breaks my heart, Lori. Yeah. But I do agree. I agree. I think that Nina is, you know, honest with her kids. You know, they've been through a lot. They've been through a lot. Town Chat Cafe says, forget me not. It's definitely questionable more and more. So whether he did or not, the 3 a.m. video could have been taking something out to the car SUV with his stuff he needed. Yeah, I know that theory is pretty strong, that people think that they could have been carrying like a big bag of stuff out to the vehicle at 3 a.m. And I can't discount that. You know, you really can't see what's in the, you know, in my opinion, the arms of someone who is allegedly allegedly carrying Sebastian out. It could be a bag of items, you know, belongings. I can't discount that completely. You know, it's so hard to know. And Anne says, I hope that they will not give Sebastian Rogers to CP and KP. Yeah. And I think that Seth would definitely advocate for that him not to go back in the house because of the abuse that happened, right? I think that would be, and in all fairness, I do think since he was supposed to go back and live, you know, or so since he was supposed to go live with Seth, he's probably going to go back to Seth, if I could take a wild guess, you know. But again, it's just so far in, and I think it would all be determined on the state that Sebastian is found in, you know, and what happened to him to make him poof, right? Because we know he didn't do that. We know he didn't vanish, disappear, whatever. But we don't know what happened to him. But if he was found, I'm sure we would know. Michelle says, I like the true crime, but I try to look at a whole picture, and there is 2 sides. But CP and KP don't keep the scales from tipping against them by their actions. I'm not sure about Seth. Haven't seen much on here. Yeah, Michelle, and I will say the reason why I stand behind Seth is because when I just look at like the meat and potatoes of the case and not so much all of the extra like fluff and everything, when I look at the meat and potatoes, I see, you know, Chris and Katie have not given proof of a polygraph test. Seth went on national TV and was administered a polygraph by one of Nancy Grace's handpicked polygraphers. I believe it's retired FBI agent, right? No skin in the game, no dog in the fight. And he's honest and open about it. When we ask Seth a question, he answers it directly. When he goes on camera, or when he comes on YouTube to speak to anyone, or if he's on his channel, or if he goes up on panel, he shows himself. I would say a good 90% of the time, you know, give or take, right? We always know what we're going to get when we talk to Seth. In my opinion, you're going to get, well, okay, let's go back to 98% of the time. Because one of the last times that Seth came up, he was upset, rightfully so. And he, wasn't his mild-mannered self. He was, I'll just quote him. He woke up pissed, and then he stayed pissed. And, he wanted just to speak his piece, so to speak. And I think he did that. And, I think that it was a long time coming. Another vomitocious thing that Chris said today that I just remembered. So thank you, Michelle, for your comment. Another thanks, Meg. Another really weird thing that Chris had said today is that he's sorry that he blew up, which is nice that he said he was sorry that he blew up, but then he gave an excuse. So if he would have just came up and been like, I'm sorry I blew up again, I'm really upset. Sorry, that's not an excuse, but I'm going to try hard not to blow up and stuff. But he didn't do that. He's like, I'm sorry I blew up, but it's been all the 15 months, and I mean, I couldn't hold it back anymore. Bull crap, it's just blow up after blow up after blow up after blow up, and you never know what you're gonna get. It just depends. And Sammy says 1 needs very little support, 2, 3 needs very high support. Oh, is that, well, see, because they were talking about, that they don't call it Asperger's anymore, but I know a lot of people that call their child diagnosis Asperger's, so, and it's all the Aspies from back in the day, those are OG Aspies, you can't just be like, oh, you can't call it that anymore. It's like, no. And Megan L says, children on the spectrum or not, every child is different. Absolutely, Meg. Good point. If you have more than one child, you definitely have seen this and know this. Siblings are all different. Absolutely. Absolutely. And everybody as individuals are all different, right? You're absolutely right. Like one of your kids might, like green beans, and the other one might like, broccoli or something. I don't know. That was a bad analogy, but you know what I mean? Like, they're all going to like different things. They're all going to want, they're all going to have different, skill sets, different milestones set at different times. Your pregnancies, they will be different, right? From the very start. They're usually not exactly the same or anything like that. You might crave different things, whatever. I mean, so right off the bat, yeah, you're absolutely right, Meg. That is, we're all individuals, absolutely. And we all have our own unique stuff that we do. We all have our unique path in life that we take. Yeah, thanks, Meg. And Billy B for you says, I just don't understand why the police aren't telling us where they are at in this case. Yeah, absolutely. I feel that frustration. Yeah. I find that they have effed this up and didn't do their job for Sebastian. Yeah, it's getting more and more difficult to kind of accept that there's no evidence that, that this, that, and the other, especially when we see all of this going down here on YouTube. And I think that's, kind of maybe where Chris was talking about how he got the advice to come onto the YouTube instead. Because I kind of feel like, I said that like kind of an old person, the YouTube, going onto the YouTube. But, coming up on the different panels, right? Because it is really confusing, and especially because nobody can really follow the story accurately. And I think that was part of the, kudos that he was giving over to the creators that kind of taught him that was the proper way to handle things, but he's masking it in saying, in my opinion, oh yeah, it's because, all of this exposure is why we did that. No, I don't think so. Not in my opinion. I think that's another lie, Oh, Forget Me Not says Town Check Cafe. In my opinion, the Backyard Lights video is an exchange of items. anything's possible. Because, we know that somebody was allegedly carrying something through the ditch is what we heard, right? And then also, there was a light source that went back, so there had to be an exchange. There had to be. Because what was that person coming out from where they came from and then went right back from where they came from, right? There had to be an exchange. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, in my opinion. Unless she picked Chris up on the side of the road, which I did have something for you guys too. Give me 1 second here. I think it was on X. Okay, maybe I did upload it. Okay, hold on a second. Okay. Oh, and then another statement that Chris made today was that autism, he thinks that there should be like a sign that has a whole bunch of people on it and that says autism. You never know. And just when I thought, my brain couldn't leak out of my head anymore today, Chris said that. You just don't know. I really don't know about him. But okay, so what we're gonna do here while I get this for you guys, because I didn't get it loaded and I don't think I thought I clicked on it. We'll just watch this old clip from Vinny Politan really quick. Oh, sorry, here. Well, let's play this one really quick. I could probably do it in 31 seconds. All right, here we go, guys.
Very high functioning.
I mean, and that's why, like, I was trying to just put it out there. Is like everybody has come up with this idea, and that's not the case. People wouldn't know Sebastian. Like, if we had never said he was autistic, people would not have a clue that Sebastian was autistic. They would thought something was wrong with him, and not ever said autism.
Right. And you know what? If he
Okay. So that was a little bit of brain leakage there. Okay. Yep, I got it in too. Here we go. Let me just upload her. And this is allegedly a guy that was sitting up at the bar. Now, I thought this was really interesting, and I was kind of waiting to have enough people in here to go over it. But we have Chris Proudfoot, right, from his debut with Holly Thompson. And then we also have a man that resembles Chris that is wearing glasses. Now, we know that anybody can go get glasses, right? Anywhere. They don't have to be prescriptions. You can just go grab yourself a pair of readers. But I think this is really interesting, and I have had a similar picture that I've seen before of a guy that was at the Texas Roadhouse in the bar. But again, when I'm not sure of the sources of a picture, I always double check to make sure that, I'm not showing you guys, a bunch of bazinga. You know what I mean? A bunch of nonsense up here. But when I look, this definitely resembles Chris. The nose, the lips, and the facial hair. We also know that Chris likes to rock a ball cap. And Megan L says, I don't understand why CP speaks so much when he wasn't there and isn't his biological parent. Very good question. But, I wonder if he was there, because I say that too. I say, if you're not there, and I also said, like, if you weren't there, then why would you say we would have all woke up? We would have all heard him. Show Poodle says the mustache is weird in the pic on the left. Yeah. It's like a rounder. I agree, Show Poodles. It's like rounder. Definitely. This one is a lot more squarely cut, right? And it looks, squared off. And you can't really see the eyes. Because again, he's wearing glasses. So of course there's going to be a glare from the camera. I wish we could make the logo out on that hat. So I'd really like to see the logo on the hat. See where it came from. Because we know that there was a hat found in the retention pond. You guys remember that? Meg. His widow fingers. Billy B for you says, I believe he was there at the TBH. It does look like him. I mean, it looks a lot like him. And like I said, I don't know if he wears glasses on the regular or if that was just kind of like a brief disguise or what. So if Chris was at the Roadhouse, why would he be at the Roadhouse? Because I've always, again, thought that it was very bizarre that they went to the Roadhouse. Chris let it out of the bag a couple of times that Sebastian doesn't even really care for red meat. I mean, he said that several times. They've never said, Sebastian loves a good steak, right? That's just never been said. Then he also said he prefers not to eat it. He went to the Texas Roadhouse. So was something supposed to go down at the Texas Roadhouse that didn't go down the way it was supposed to? Or did Katie change her mind? Or did they think that they were trying to get Sebastian to go willingly, but he was protesting? Because why would Chris be there? Why are all these characters meandering around not buying a darn thing? Town Chat Cafe says, in my opinion, the face shape looks different. Chris's cousin Danny looks a lot like CP, Cinderella. Sure does. Sure does. And in that case, why would Chris's cousin Danny be at the bar at Texas Roadhouse? And if Chris's cousin Danny was at the bar at Texas Roadhouse, why didn't Katie go up and he and Sebastian say hello? If that's a cousin, it's kind of weird. I would go up and say hi to my cousin and be like, hey, cuz, what up? Baba Rose says he was there. It's just interesting, and I wanted to go over it. It's all alleged in our opinions. So what we're perceiving, with our two eyes here. Show Poodle says it does very much resemble, in my opinion. I think so. I think it resembles Chris or possibly someone in his family. That was a good point. Very close match, in my opinion. I would like to get a closer look at his eyes, obviously. We have to remember different camera angles are going to produce different kind of, angles of your face, right? So it's more of a little bit of a side view, as this one's more of, a full-on, view. I guess it's skewed a bit on in the photo on the right, from the interview, and then the photo on the left is allegedly from the bar at the Texas Roadhouse. Yeah, it's right under his nose. Yeah, it is. It's for Show Poodles. I agree. It's right under his nose. Meg says, looks like a dark shadow on that side. Yeah, and that could be a shadow as well. Very true. Because And, you know, keep in mind, Cinderella thinks it's Danny. Keep in mind, there may be shadowing going on. You're absolutely right, in a still taken from a video, right? You're going to get a lot of different shadows and stuff because the pixels are going to be different, right? And there may have been motion going on. There may have, you know, it depends on the lighting in the room. It depends on the camera placement. Hey, Carrie Star. Carrie Star says Cinderella, it's his stepbrother Danny that looks like him. Now, his other stepbrother, yeah, the Proudfoots, excuse me, the Flying Monkey Foot, stepfoot, right, to Chris. Yeah, he is actually father of a child that looks like Chris, like they could be brothers. Yeah, absolutely. Always on Empty says, I told him to go to bed and he did. KP, what did he wear to bed, in my opinion? That's always been, you know, a point of contention. Always on Empty 72. Absolutely. Always. The logo would be a great find, Show Poodles. I would love to know what that logo is. I would love to know if Chris owns a hat like that. Now, we know that Chris has certain hats that he likes to wear as well. And, you know, he could have slipped up and worn the hat, you know, in an interview. Town Chat Cafe says the pic on the left is really distorted too, so it's kind of hard to see. And no, I didn't hear about a hat found on the at the retention pond. Yeah, so there was a hat that was found at the retention pond, and it was for a home security company, if I can recall. He does he changes his appearance all the time, Billy B for you. Absolutely. Changes his appearance all the time. And it's so difficult because we know, and I will just put this out there, he was dyeing his hair for sure. Because all of a sudden he's like this heavy salt and pepper gray. Always on Empty says, I wonder if there really was a poker game. I think that there was. I think there was. Yes. Carrie Star says Daniel Bowersox looks like Chris, but taller. Yes, exactly. Daniel Bowersox. Thank you, Carrie Star. Daniel Bowersox looks like Chris, but taller. In my opinion, Lucy was definitely looking around for somebody, in my opinion. I'm not sure who Lucy is. No, little Miss Sharon, you're hilarious. Thanks. Coming in hot. Starflower says the man on the left has much more pointed chin. Yeah, I agree. Here, I'll take the banner down. I'm sorry, guys. We got to see that chin a little bit better. Oh, I guess it doesn't matter. He does. So his face is thinner. His face is thinner, definitely. I agree. And I mean, how much can you gain in a week? Right? Yeah, TRH is the Texas Roadhouse. Thank you, Lori. Yes. Hey, SI officer. We are sleuthing, that's all, in my opinion. That's right, Show Poodles. That's right. Wait, that guy looks familiar. It's not Chris, but it's someone. I know. He looks really familiar, and I don't know if it's kin to Chris or, you know. Sorry, guys. I lost the chat here for a second. Oh, there we go. Oh. Meg says, controlling, narcissistic, beat around the bush, inserting himself where he doesn't belong. Everyone and thing is disposable. CPS recognized, tormenting, limp weenie, man-child. In my opinion. was a sick burn. That was a sick burn. Yep, Meg, yes. Always on Empty 72 says I used to follow her on searches, even Crabtree when he searched. Yeah, it's good. It's good to watch the searches, I think. You know. It is. It is. It is. There's so much more research on autism now, and it's changed so fast. We have learned a lot from a generation of autistic kids who have grown up, i.e., don't force eye contact, food, or sitting still. Yeah, absolutely, Sammy. I agree. That's absolutely well said. Thank you. And Meganelle says, I don't understand why CP speaks so much when he wasn't there. Oh, sorry. I told you guys I missed the chat. Aw, thanks, Always on Empty. Thank you. I'm glad I didn't miss all those green hearts. Love those green hearts. Town Check Cafe, in my opinion, maybe that is why the dogs didn't pick up a real scent, because he was around for them to pick up his scent, in my opinion. Yeah. I mean, it's so hard with the dogs and stuff, because Katie even said there were cadavers and stuff, and to my knowledge, they didn't have those. You know what I mean? Thanks, little Miss Sharon. Thank you. Yeah, I agree, Lori. I think you should go to Seth's. I do. And that would be my wild guess, because if that was going to be the plan anyway, I would assume that's what would be the, unless something happened and, we find out something different, right? If there was a different outcome or something like that. Aw, thank you, Always on Empty. Aw, thank you so much. And Sammy says, but it's still my opinion. There's definitely a leg and a foot attached to that bag, though I don't see a bag at all. I see a sheet with legs wearing jeans and socked feet. Yeah, I know. I think it is like a blanket. I was thinking a blanket too, but a sheet, you know what I mean? Could be too. Town Chat Cafe says, oh boy, by the way, is this current, new, or old news about someone saying that they thought they saw Sebastian on Grandfather Mountain, and Seth and KK both say it is him, but Luke says it isn't, so in my opinion. Well, I will say this. I will say I don't believe that the sighting of Sebastian at Grandfather Mountain was Sebastian. Seth went there with Michaela, aka Wreck-It Rhonda, and they pursued that lead, and he was told that was not Sebastian. That was just another doppelganger. One that's really close to my mind, of course, the one that we kind of studied was the one in Missouri, right? Because that young man really resembled Sebastian, maybe a younger version. But so did that other young man who had darker hair at Grandfather Mountain. But that was in the beginning of the case. So that's old news. But Lori says she still questions Grandpa Mountain, Grandfather Mountain. And I will say you guys just jogged my memory a little bit. I was watching Smiley Stories World the other day, and Grandfather Mountain was mentioned. And there was an interesting theory. I'll have to clip it and we'll watch it over here. Yeah, and I mean, it was weird. Well, they were talking about that it was kind of weird that they didn't let Seth, see for himself and things like that. Which, I mean, I can understand that, And Michelle says, I'm sure Seth is beside himself. He's human and in a bad situation. I get it. I feel for him wholeheartedly. Yeah, Michelle. Yeah, I know. There's so many that do. Baba Rose, what's Edgar's condition called? Assholeitis. And Always on Empty says, who is a woman behind KP? The woman behind KP at the restaurant? Asshole, Baba. Lori. Oh my goodness. Always it's Terry Lynn in court. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, behind. Oh yes, yes, yes. Yeah. And then they're like, oh no, she wasn't in there. And I was like, well, she was that time. Seth ripped CP a new one. Sure did, little Miss Sharon. Sure did. Well, and I mean, you almost had to like go back and find some clips. I should have kind of found the clips that he was referring to, but and kind of put them in order. But I kind of wanted to let Seth have the whole stage and let everything that transpired earlier in the day, um, you know, be said before I let Seth have the stage. Billy B for you says it's called a little man who hits kids syndrome. Tough guy syndrome. Aw. Baba Rose says always on empty. Terry Lynn's Edgar's sixth wife. It sure looked like that in the picture. It's just strange, It's just strange. I can't show that picture of them unless I show her. So it's like, I have no choice. So I just decided to, um, you know. Okay, now I see, because I flipped up the chat, so now I see this makes sense. We'll go on and pop that one back up there too. Max. Oh Lord. Limp Crispy. Yeah, and I mean I support anybody that's searching for Sebastian, but I think it's just gotten to the point where it's not about Sebastian, it's about, getting in the mix of where the camera is going to be located, in my opinion. And that just says that it was all fake. Because Crabtree was back there too, and they're I don't know, maybe they think they're the only ones that can spread awareness or something, because they were certainly there against another creator who was doing very similar actions, like posting flyers and things like that. So you nailed old Edgar. Yes, she did. Baba Rose. Oh my goodness. Starflower says Chris is a piece of crap. Sebastian is far more normal and healthy emotionally than Chris will ever be. Absolutely. And just what he said about Sebastian today, that, oh yeah, you'd know something's wrong with him. No, you wouldn't. That's not what his teacher said. And I think the teacher's a lot smarter than Edgar, Billy B for you says, OMG, that's him. Meg says it would have been longer, but she was running out of typing room. Very similar, little Miss Sharon. I haven't really made up my mind either way, I will be honest. But now that you guys are bringing in other people that it may be too that look like this person, it very well could be, or it could be another doppelganger. We just never know. But it's very interesting, Always on Empty 72 says, I'll always be nosy NJS, and told her she turned it into a hate channel and how quick she turned it into members only. I unsubbed and disliked. Oh man. And it's like, well, and that's the thing. Whenever you go to one extreme or another, you have to expect people to not be okay with, that decision. And, everybody makes their own decisions and chooses which path they're going to go down. But I mean, oh man, it's amazing. Some of the stuff that is scary, Meg. Okay, I already read the retention pond one. Sorry, guys, I got mixed up in the chat there. Meg, I agree. The way that Sebastian stopped short while walking out of the Roadhouse when he sees the person between the cars makes me think he knew who was who it was and didn't like who it was, or both. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because they were walking in one direction and he totally changes his trajectory. And then he was also staring like, he was watching like a hawk. Great point. And thank you for reminding us of that, because I mean, that was very noticeable. And I think it was super noteworthy, right? Because it caught Sebastian's attention and he was super focused on whoever it was. And it didn't look like it was a good type of a focus. It was more like, who the hell are you and why are you by my mom kind of a thing. He looked protective over his mom, definitely, in my opinion. And Tom Chat Cafe says, I noticed there was a pickup truck that pulled in at 26, and when it turned around and left 153, passenger window was down and drove by as who was pulling into the handicap spot. Okay. Are you saying Katie? Okay, I think maybe you meant to say Katie. And drove by as Katie, was pulling into the handicap spot. That's when they were pulling into the Roadhouse. And Michelle says, did you notice KP turn her head looking up and around at the cam? Kind of weird. Was she looking for the camera, and why? I noticed it today and when I zoomed in on her. Probably at the Texas Roadhouse then, Michelle. She was looking around weird in the Texas Roadhouse video, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Always on empty. He was watching his mom all the way to the car and he covered his ears. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And even after he was watching, and then Green Hoodie comes through in the middle. Lori says Chris could have been there to make sure things went down. That's a great point. Yeah. Yeah. And he doesn't look, the person on the left-hand side doesn't look happy at all, right? He kind of looks like he's in a, kind of a tense conversation. Sammy says, wait, that guy looks familiar. Oh, it's not Chris, it's someone, though. Okay, and then I saw these. SI officer. Carrie Starr says, when KP and Sebastian pulled into the Texas Roadhouse, it looked like CP standing by the concrete pillars where she pulled in. Yeah, I remember Shay from Shay's Safe Place pointing that out, Carrie. You're right. Well, Miss Sharon says, SI officer, do you think this is the same guy as CP? Meg says, which Danny did TL have relations with? My memory is a little bit foggy on that one. I think it was the younger. I don't think it was Big D. I think it was, and for all intents and purposes, of the show, and allegedly for entertainment value only, I think it was Little D that Terry Lynn hooked up with. Sammy says Jennifer Kaffendaffer alludes to someone like being there over in the corner. She says she had a portion of the video that was not released. Yes, I do remember that, Sammy. Thank you for reminding us of that too. Yes. And didn't she say something to the effect, I'm trying to think of what she exactly said, but she said something to the effect of like, we don't, they're not showing us the entire restaurant, and that, there does appear to be someone sitting at the bar area. Yes, I do remember that. I remember that, Sammy. And SI officer says, yes, I think so. In my opinion, Danny has a slight difference of nose. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing in this picture, because it looks like, Chris, who we know to be Chris from the interview, right, with Holly Thompson. His nose looks like there's a tiny little bit of a point to the end of it, and his profile, you can see that as well. When we're seeing a profile view of Chris, but this one's more of a more centered view of him, but you can see the tiny point at the end. Now we don't see that in the left-handed photo of the mystery man at the Roadhouse. Danny Bauer socks. Okay, thanks, Carrie. That's what I was thinking. Yeah. An SI officer says, and I believed it one time. I haven't been back to it, but the gray sweatshirt, black and white ball cap was him when I was researching it, in my opinion. Okay, yeah, and this is, it would probably be that same person, because we can only see him from behind, but when Shay did it, she compared him to this one, and forgive me that I don't have the actual Chris Proudfoot butt shot, because that's really what it was, but it's like, his back is turned to the camera, and I gotta show it this way, so bear with me. But see, it was in this one, and he's standing like that with his legs in the same one that she compared it with, right? Except for his back was turned to the camera. But it was from this particular outing, the same night that Seth had the vigil for Sebastian, and Sebastian earned his honorary award, right, for AG. And he was presented with that, and Katie is enjoying an evening with her husband Chris at a bike shop, looking at Hondas, Harleys, whatever. But there's that back for you guys if you want to take a gander. Yeah, I can clean the picture up, Anne. I sure can, hon. I sure can. Yeah, I'm gonna go back and see if I can't find him in there too. We'll play a game of find the step foot. Yeah, there was a poker game, SI officer allegedly on Friday night, and it's alleged that on Thursday, Chris left out of work, right? After work, and he was off on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? Returning back to work on Monday. Yeah, little Miss Sharon. It was alleged that they found a hat over in the retention pond. I think it was the Narc divers. Was it those guys? Don't quote me on that one, because I'm not sure if I'm recalling the right group, because there was a few that were out there searching the ponds and different things, helping out in the search. And Sammy says, nope, definitely not DG. I don't think it's DB either, but it's a familiar face. Okay, Sammy, yeah. Yeah, and we'll see if we can get it maybe a different picture. This is just a still that somebody caught, right? It's just like when somebody sent me over the still of this one, and I went back to Dog's original video that he posted from his site, his YouTube page, and I found, I verified it that way. That was my way of verifying, at least. And that's what, we came up with. So it's, the same for this, if this is in fact, now this was from X, right? Somebody posted this on X. So there you go. And I can always try to pull in another one and search for him. And then again, Shay's Safe Place has the guy outside of the Roadhouse with his back turned to the camera, and he's got his 1 foot behind his other foot, kind of crossed over the back of him, and he was leaning on the wall like he was in the bike shot. Yeah, it is Town Chat Cafe. Yeah. But, some people think that there's still some validity to the Grandfather Mountain, because he did look a lot like Sebastian. I will say that. Oh, thank you, Lori, for that stat there. One out of every 32 children are born with autism. Yeah. Yeah. And then just think it's a spectrum disorder. So, many of the characteristics and ways in which people would be described are going to be, so vast and, you know, because it's so, they're so rare, and it just depends on where you fall on the spectrum. It also depends on the care that you receive. If your parents take you and get you the therapies that are going to help you succeed, then that's, then you will. Like I said, a lot of times somebody as high functioning as Sebastian, just needs a little bit of extra help, and, could really thrive if given the proper therapies. Sammy says Lucy on the Prairie, an ad from 90 Day Fiance. Miss Kim 77 says, I wonder if LE followed the yellow coat guy after he left the restaurant. I believe he has a part in this somehow, in my opinion. Yeah, I do too. I really do. Because why would he? Why? If he didn't have anything to do with it, then why didn't he get any food? Why was he acting weird? Why was he following Katie and Sebastian around? And also, why did he have a picture of Sebastian on his phone? I feel like maybe something was supposed to go down that night, and it's looking more and more like that, and then it didn't happen the way it was planned. Running around every which way all day. We still don't have a clear story about the day's events. We have that other lady that came into play. Do I still have her in here? No, it doesn't look like I do. But, Dara, she's, oh, no, there she is. There she is. Dara Nebel says, yeah, he was at my house for a few minutes on Sunday afternoon with his mom and his cousin. But I thought that they all parted ways at BJ's. So if they all parted ways at BJ's, then how could this person, Dara Nebel, allege that Sebastian was with his mother and his cousin at her house that day? All doesn't add up. All changing, ever changing, right? Good night, Lil Miss Sharon. Thanks for being here. Hey, Mitty. Thank you for coming in. And Always on MT72 says the guy on the left looks thinner in the face. He does. I agree. I believe the same thing, Billy B. I do too. And it just sickens me. I believe Sebastian was so scared of CP. I do too. Anne says, in my opinion, that one in North Carolina is Sebastian Rogers. I gotcha, Town Chat. Town Chat Cafe says KP is Luke and KK is Lucy for Mr. and Mrs. Lucifer. I gotcha. I wasn't picking up on that, and for a second there, I was like, Lucy, oh, maybe it's a typo. That's funny. Hey, Carla, good to see you. Just got home from shopping all day. Ooh, with your daughter? How nice. That's wonderful. Who is Lucy? Where did the picture of CP or his brother-in-law come from? Carla, you crack me up. Yep. All valid. I'm so glad. I hope you had a wonderful day with your daughter. Aw. Who is Lucy and where? You guys crack me up. So we don't know who this is, Carla. We think that, this could possibly be Chris. Some of us think it's not. Some of us think it might be his brother. Some, we're speculating if it's Big D, Little D, or, the D, Chris Broadfoot, Dick. We're trying to figure this out. It's just crazy. Oops, in my opinion, Town Chat. We ought to call them Fred and Wilma Flintstone. That's funny. Always on empty. I see he is not bad looking guy in some of his interviews. Yeah, I mean, it's really when you get to know a person. That's my thing, because I could look at a person and be like, wow, that woman's very pretty, or that man's handsome, or something like that. But then once they start talking, and you realize that they're maybe not the best person, or you're always gonna side eye someone like Chris in the way that he came out in this case. So, but yeah, once I, if Chris was like, had the personality of, say, a nice person, then I would think, yeah, he's, objectively not ugly. Um, Megan's, but yeah, don't make me admit. You guys are killing me. Megan says, someone said it was CP's stepbrother, Danny, she had relations with. Oh God, I'm just Ron Burgundying everything tonight. You know what? I do think that I think that you are correct, Meg. I think you are correct. Starflower says if this was pre-planned, then CP and KP had someone else step in to take Sebastian. This would allow them to pass polygraphs and claim innocence. Well, and I agree, Starflower. There are certain things that, like, if they believe it in their mind, they would be able to pass a polygraph, right? So it really depends on what transpired and what question was asked of them as well, is also, needs to be considered. And Town Chat Cafe says, can I post the link here to what I'm looking at? It's the at night media video of Sebastian. Yeah, sure thing, Town Chat. Oh, you know what? You're not a mod. I just realized that. So I think only the mods can post the links. Billy B for You says CP has creepy black eyes. He looks like a monster, in my opinion. Yeah, he does. He does have very voided out eyes, in my opinion. And I don't just mean that because he's got dark features. I have dark features as well. And Town Chat Cafe says, and also, in my opinion, at the 3-second mark, the guy at the takeout window in the short captain's coat does resemble Richard Bishop a whole lot, in my opinion. Then he walks inside. Yeah, they do resemble each other. I just don't think it's the same person. I really don't. Just because of the nose. I know that I was looking for the earring, because there was an earring, but we didn't find it. It was very difficult to see the yellow coat's, features, because he's covered up so much, and he's, kind of got, in my opinion, a heavy disguise. And Carrie Starr says, yes, it cut out because the guy who looked like CP outside vanished. Then the truck that was there was gone, and it was a car like KP parked beside her inside of the truck. Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying there, Carrie Starr. Yeah. Yeah, and that was like right before they went in. And Always on Empty says, in my opinion, Lori was there at the home when Seth Rogers arrived. So if she was there for the weekend with her son, then maybe he took out the trash. That's been alleged too. Always on Empty. Yeah. And they could have told him, like, run like Sebastian or something like that. They could have, because Katie maintains that whoever took the trash out was, running like Naruto, which was a unique thing that Sebastian did, according to them. Hey, momming it up. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. SI officer says, yes, the leg in the same position. Absolutely. And I had stated in another video at one point to look at what color the bottom of the sneaker was. Yeah. And I believe that I believe that the sneakers that Katie and Sebastian were wearing were very similar. Hey, Poppy Love, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for coming in. Good to see all you guys. Meg says, I believe that the hat was found, was a security company hat, but not Brinks. Yeah, that's right, Meg. That's what I remember too. That's what I remember too. And, you know, that was just weird as well, because, and then I remember people asking Katie, did Sebastian like to wear hats? And she was like, well, not for very long. Like he did like hats, but he wouldn't keep them on very long, is what she said, from what I can recall. And Always on Empty says, I heard about that hat too. How did CP know the pond was knee deep? I live near the ocean and I don't know how deep it is. Yeah, good point. Good point. Same here. You know, and it's like, he supposedly went out with the narc divers or talked with them. I know he did the ride around too very early on. And I'm not sure. And knee deep is really dependent on how tall someone is too. You know, that's not a very good description. Because I do remember back then people were trying to figure out how tall Chris was, so that way we can see, you know, what he was referring to. You know, and that's when we found out that, you know, there may or may not be a Napoleon complex present based on the height factor. And Carla says, can you imagine driving behind the two of them on a motorcycle and watching the fat rolls blow in the wind? Carla. No, but I can now. No, I'm just kidding. Lori says, exactly, Meg. SI officer says the nurse diver, as far as the hat being found in the... oh, okay, so maybe narc divers, yeah. Found in the pond was held up for the view of the cameras. Yeah, it was narc. Thank you. I just scrolled down a little bit. Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you guys are remembering, because I was starting to think like, oh, did I misspeak on that one? Always on Empty says CP and KP are eating all those snacks now. He said, Always on Empty, you know, that's what I said about the Granny interview. I didn't get a chance to clip any of it, and I barely got through most of it, but it said, he said one of the positives about, you know, Sebastian being missing was the food train. I was like, there's just so many things, you know. He walked right into that one though, you know. SI officer says, I do believe that this is CP in Texas Roadhouse. In my opinion, I think you're misunderstanding. Oh, you do believe that this is CP at the Texas Roadhouse, in my opinion. Okay, so you do think it is CP. Yeah, I mean, I don't know who it is. I'll be honest with you. I have seen similar pictures to this. You know, I have. And I just figured, since somebody wanted to post it on X, it's out there, you know, we can speculate on it. And Sasha says, no, I don't miss the intro. I can't. I'm backing it up. Oh, nice to see you, Sasha. Thanks for coming in. Carla says, I do believe Chris was there. Why Sebastian was so nervous. Well, and that could have been too, maybe, you know, because he was looking over towards the bar and stuff like that. And it looked like there was, you know, a very matter-of-fact conversation coming, you know. Oh, Sasha says, I've been talking with a crawl space expert this evening. He went over a blueprint with me. Oh, nice. Very good, Sasha. That's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Sasha says, so I would like to discuss crawl spaces, what they consist of, and their function. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely share what he came up with you. Absolutely. Please do. I would love that. It would be appreciated. And Carla says, Grandfather Mountain had been told not to show Seth the footage so he could see if it was Sebastian. Then they said they checked it out and it wasn't him. How did they check it out? Did they just take the woman's word it was her son? You know, that's a good question, Carla, and I can't, argue that, KJ Mack, absolutely. Good to see you. The lies never cease, it appears. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Her son, why no DNA test? Well, that's true. I will say, in my opinion, that I when I looked at the picture at Grandfather Mountain, my first initial reaction was, wow, that really looks like Sebastian with dark hair. And then I also noticed the mannerisms and the way he was standing. Um, Reminded me of some of the pictures that I had seen. And of course, we don't know Sebastian. We can only see what we've seen in the pictures and things like that. Um, Now, I personally never thought that it was Sebastian. Did I think it resembled him heavily? Yes. Same thing with the Missouri lead, if you will, you know, for all intents and purposes of this live. But I never did. But Seth clearly thought, and he wants to track down every lead, right? So he's going to do that. So many conflicting stories, SI officer, so many. And that's what's so exhausting and confusing. Carla says crawl spaces go under the home to access water pipes, etc. But lots of times has openings inside the home that would or could exit the house door from camera, outside door from the camera. Well, and I wonder if, I know that crawl spaces have been a hot topic too lately. Meg says, Carla, girl, I peeped that woman's Facebook before she shut it down, and she had many pictures, but no older pictures that Sebastian look alike, just many of them that age. It was weird. Okay. Interesting. See, I never got a chance to peep her Facebook, Meg. That's really interesting. So before she shut it down, she had many pictures, but no older pictures of the Sebastian lookalike. Yeah, that's odd. I will say that's odd. Oh, so Poppy, the picture came from X, and then I just pulled in another photo. Right? So, and I mean, it is a bit of a different angle, right? But it's supposedly a guy that was at the Texas Roadhouse at the bar the night that Sebastian disappeared, right? Town chat. Michelle, that's it. Get Scooby-Doo gang. I need Velma glasses for these two pics. Look too similar. Yes. Hey, Kai, good to see you. Thank you for being here. Sasha says these lights are people dealing with the crawl space. Probably. Could be. They really could be. We don't know what the lights are doing, except for they're moving across the yard. One comes back, SI officer says one of these days, or excuse me, one of these D's have a different nose. Yeah, I agree. The nose is definitely different. Like there's no point on the end where we see one on the photo on the right, which is Chris. So we definitely know who the photo on the right is. It's just questionable who the photo on the left is. Town Chat Cafe says, oh, correction, it's called a peacoat. The man that looks like Richard Bishop at the to-go window at the 03 seconds in the Texas Roadhouse video before Lucy gets there. Interesting. Well, and we know what peacoats come from, the Navy. KJ Max says the fuzzy picture with his mouth open makes it hard to see the face shape well. It makes the jaw look more elongated. That's true. You're right. Good point. Really good point. Because in the one in the right, his mouth is closed, but the one in the left, it's open, so it's gonna, of course, look different. It's gonna be perceived different. Thanks, KJ Mac. That's a great point. Really appreciate that. Um, Sasha says, or the lights are the decoy, and they were actually putting Sebastian in a prepared area in the crawl space. I don't know. My speculation. Yeah. Well, it is worrisome that we know that they kind of dropped the ball on searching the house. You know, I don't know if they would move Sebastian from the location, but if the house wasn't thoroughly searched, I mean, they said they searched the Proudfoot's home 10 times. That was the first week, you know, and that was reported on to the local news stations. Carla says, Meg, really, I believe it was him, and Snuggle Struggle knew it, but helped the Bowersocks and not so Proudfoot's hide him. That's interesting, Carla. Yeah. I mean, anything's possible at this point. It seems like they're not being very helpful. I'll say that, you know. And Megan L says, man, I'm just shaking my head. She said she didn't know CP. How could you be doing the step brother and not know the other one? I can't see it if it was a cousin or something, not knowing CP. Right. That's very true. I agree. That's a great point. I mean, it's really hard to believe. Like, I mean, hey, Vonna, good to see you. 9 months of my YouTube life was a total bullshit lie. Meg, I feel that so hard. Like, you have no idea. I'm just like, hey, Annette, it hoits so bad. Mitty says, who was the woman doing this? Stepbrother. Oh man, maybe I didn't want to go up too far. Carla says, Sasha, the lights are people exiting the Sebastian from the crawl space, all pre-planned and knew how to avoid the cameras. Why Sebastian not seen in any cam leaving? You know, I can see that being very true, Carla, where they would bring him out of the crawl space so they would avoid the backyard and, you know, having to use the fence and everything. And then, you know, straight pre-planned, you know, pathway to the waiting vehicle, the mystery car. Couponing says via company security, another security company, and he found a roll of extra sturdy plastic. Yes, Narc Divers found that. Thank you, via company security, another security company, and he found a extra roll of sturdy plastic. Wow. Yes, Narc Divers found that. Sturdy plastic, huh? That reminds me of that show Dexter. And Town Chat Cafe says, yeah, I have said that exact same thing too about who took out the trash. So glad we are on the same wavelength, in my opinion. Yeah, Town Chat Cafe, that is another strong possibility, you know? And they could have even tricked the little boy and been like, run like Sebastian does when he runs like Naruto, and, you know, and the little boy could have done it, and they could have, you know, given him a cookie. Like, you have no idea, you know what I mean? That's such a great point. Vonna says, looks like CP's fat lips to me. His mouth hangs open a lot, and when you see him from the side view, lower lip looks like the photo on the left. Yeah, the lips are really strong for me, the nose not so much, and of course we can't see the eyes because of the hat angle and then also the glasses. Sasha says, and the overview is detached from the home, flows to the front sewer drain directly to the retaining pond. I believe the dogs were hitting on Sebastian from inside the underground. That is really, really smart, Sasha. That makes sense to me. And the overflow is detached from the home. It flows to the front sewer drain directly to the retention pond. I believe the dogs were hitting on Sebastian from inside the underground. The dogs, one of the dogs, Max, jumped in the retention pond, allegedly. Momming it up, says Meg, it happens. I understand. Believe me, I feel the same. At times it was only 3 to 4 months for me, but I still am heartbroken. I'm sorry you experienced the manipulation. Yeah, really well said, Mommin, and that's exactly what it was manipulation. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sorry anybody had to go through that. I'm sorry for you, Mommin. 3 to 4 months is a long time still. You kind of build on relationships with people and think people are good. And C. Taylor says narc divers ND and CJ found the hat in the water, and they discuss it on some of their lives. Trey, right? Sorry, Trevi. I was thinking T-Rev or something for some reason. Sorry. C. Taylor. Trey of the narc divers is the person who later recorded his conversation with CP, and when CP claimed the dog scent trail, etc. Yeah, thanks, C. Taylor, for that. I appreciate that clarification, because that's exactly it. And I played it because, I think it was Crime Sleuthin' that I actually saw that video on, and then I replayed it on this channel. I think I just made a video. I don't think we looked at it live. We might have. But yeah, you're absolutely right. So narc divers, because they were in CJ, they were definitely looking in and around at the ponds and things like that. They found the hat. And then Trey of narc divers is the person who later recorded his conversation with CP, and then CP was claiming about the scent trail. Yeah. Yep. Thanks, C. Taylor. Yeah, because and why did they find the hat and not law enforcement? And SI officer says it's only a matter of time, a couple more pieces, and I am hoping for things to start moving forward. First one to squeal gets the deal. Speak up. This is not going away. Justice is coming. Yeah, really well said, SI officer. And I agree. I mean, the tension is definitely building, and that's kind of why I picked the first background that I did today. The pressure is building up, and you can tell, CP is trying to save face with this newest interview, acting like, oh, I'm just a normal old guy, I never do anything wrong. And, how's everybody doing today? Just so he can pretend like he was nice on one live, and then next time we see him, he'll probably be in a different headspace, And Sasha says, the crawl space, the water overflow running to it in the front yard and the home. That's why cadaver dogs hit by the common area ravine drain and the retaining pond. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Sasha. I think that could be a reason, because we've always wondered why the dogs would hit on the retention pond, right? And then we heard that they weren't scent specific and things like that. But, that very well could be, because we can't ask the dog. Sasha says because he prepared the crawl space for burial, my opinion, he knew where the overflow went and how deep it was. Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that. And Meg says, SI officer, I sure hope you're right. Yeah, absolutely. Town Chat Cafe says, here's another thought, is the dogs should have tested for Luke and Lucy's scent to see if they went into the direction of the 3 a.m. lights. Yeah, I think so too. I think that they should have tracked any scents from any of the people that were in the house that night, right? Which would be Katie. So yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. Talked to a blueprint crawl space expert tonight. This also explains their behavior, everything really, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a strong theory, Sasha. I do. And, I appreciate you taking the time to research so heavily. That's really great. Michelle says CP worked for construction, for which foundation? So did foundation have security system, and through what company? Chris had that one person who claimed to be his boss say that the FBI came in and looked over all of the footage at the St. Jude Foundation, or excuse me, the St. Jude hospital location where he was, at the St. Jude project. SI officer says, Sasha, you could be onto something. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Lainey says, in my opinion, most people are ignorant to the broad spectrum of autism, and they knew him ending up in the pond wouldn't be questioned by most people, and they wanted to make it appear he was there somehow, in my opinion. Yeah, I can see that. Lainey, definitely, because most people are ignorant to it, and it's not that they're trying to be, rude or anything like that. They just don't know, right? Because that's the definition of ignorant. It's the not knowing, and it is so broad, the autism spectrum. And I can see that, because I will say, even in the beginning, I was really praying that they were checking at all the water sources, right? Because we know that Sebastian was drawn to water, is what they were telling us from the beginning. So absolutely. And people wouldn't have questioned that. I could say that I would have thought that was, par for the course, or nothing out of the ordinary per se, when it comes to water and children who are on the spectrum, because it is calming for them and they're drawn to water, but everybody's different. Like you said, it's such a broad spectrum. Thank you so much for your comment, Lainey. That's my wife, always on empty. Cinderella, anyone have a facial recognition app? Ooh, that would be a good idea, Cinderella. Very good idea. Okay, Michelle says the crawl space was 3 feet access space. See, I heard someone say it was 4 feet. Carla says, I'm saying straight up, Chris Proudfoot was there and removed Sebastian from the home. Chris is guilty, and not in my opinion, he's guilty. Yeah, Carla, and it's pointing in the direction that I was saying this last night, we were kind of doing some deductions last night, like even playing devil's advocate and saying, well, if this scenario is true, then this would have to have happened, right? And we were kind of trying to deduct and see what we could come up with through deductive reasoning. And a lot of it points to guilt, in my opinion. It makes the most sense. Meg says, it's my opinion that Carla's statement is in her opinion. Thank you, Meg, for the disclaimer. And Poppy Love says, Carla, is there proof now that they have come out of the crawl space instead of the back sunroom door or the garage door? Also, is there any opening from the inside of the house to the crawl space? That's a great question, Poppy Love. That's a great question. Cameras were off. Bye-bye to the Ring doorbell camera as well, As an officer, preach, babe. KJ Max says, the lot their house sits on slopes a bit, so the height of the back is higher than the other areas. The door and the master bedroom are both in the back, aren't they? Yeah, that's a great point, KJ Mac, to put it into perspective too. Absolutely, the lot their house sits on does slope a little bit, and so it's going to be, I think that makes sense, yeah, higher in some areas. The door to the master bedroom would be in the back, I believe, because yes, the garage is in the front, and then the master's in the back. So I believe that would be accurate, in my opinion. Yes. Yeah. Because the first thing would be the garage, on that side of the house, and then the back of that. And then, of course, they have the bonus room above the garage. Sasha says, I left Carter a message. We need to go back to the common area and now the crawl space. It's hero time, Carter. Aw, Sasha, absolutely. Yeah, we need a hero in this. We do. KJ Maxx says, crawl space access within homes. Newer builds are often within the master closet and easy to open. Boom. Whoa. Watch out, KJ Maxx. Now, KJ Maxx coming in hot. Interesting. Carla says, Chris would never let anyone else be in charge of getting rid of that boy that was causing so many problems in his life. Oh, yeah. He gets high and causing Sebastian intense pain. He would want to see Sebastian face. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. Yeah, he absolutely seems like he has a vendetta because of that, the CPS. Town Chat Cafe says, Lady Freedom, I just emailed you the link and another link and attachment. I forgot the one more link. I'm going back now to send it. Thank you so much. And again, I'm sorry, guys. I have had the busiest last couple of days. And I apologize if I haven't been on top of the emails. I need to just do a whole day of emails, and you're going to probably get one from me after you sent me something 2 months ago. Oh my goodness. I really got to get on the ball with that one. Yeah, SI officer, I would love to know that too, Sasha, if he gets back with you. Yeah, absolutely. Michelle says KP was looking around like she might be looking for someone. I agree. Detective Carter has been a hero before. He knows how to be one 100%. I agree with that, Sasha. He does. And he has a really good record. He absolutely does, in my opinion, from the research that I've done. And Vanna says, crawl space in my old house has a hot water heater / furnace in it and a sump pump as well. Plumbing, only one door that opened to the side of the house. Thanks, Vanna, for sharing that. Yeah, it kind of puts it in perspective, kind of what we're thinking about, And Billy says CP probably got picked up to come to the house that night. Very well could have been, right? Because, he could have been anywhere. Somebody could have dropped him off, and he could have went undetected. I agree. It could have happened. Trishy, absolutely. Strange, right? It's like, oh boy. There's a weird metal piece in the floor of the room next to the back porch that seems to look like a door hatch that I found. In my opinion, I turned it in just in case. Thanks, Lainey. Yeah, absolutely. I don't remember seeing that. Maybe I thought it was a fire pit or something though, or I don't remember seeing that. Always on Empty says KP stated Sebastian wasn't in trouble, but I thought he got in trouble at the poker game on someone's computer and it got taken for info. So he was in trouble, KP. They both said that in the weirdest way without being asked that question, didn't they? Always on Empty. I agree. Really bizarre. And that's what people do when they're guilty, is they offer up information that wasn't asked for. They give too much, or they might try to set up an alibi, in the beginning, very quick, very early on. Sasha says the probable cause warrant, the crawl space has to be searched thoroughly, and it flows into the retention pond, and their pictures, the crawl space and Sebastian could have been hidden in there. Yeah, I think you might be onto something too, Sasha. I'm glad that you turned it in. I really am. We need to be turning these things in. Starflower says Sebastian couldn't have hidden in the home because of all the dogs. Yeah, and I've heard conflicting stories where they wouldn't let the dogs in the house And then we hear that there wasn't a scent caught. But of course, the dog, jumped in the retention pond. Sasha says, and gotten stuck. We must search the crawl space and piping thoroughly, in my opinion. I agree, Sasha. I agree. And Starflower says Sebastian wasn't hidden in the home. The odor would have revealed him to the investigators and dogs. Yeah, I know what you're saying too. Yeah, I think so. It would have been really, really risky to keep him in the home. I do think that's true, but you never know, but I agree. It would be very risky. Hey, YouTuber, good to see you. Yeah, that's a great find. Great find, Laney. And RB either owns or has important associations with private schools, including those with autism and mental patients, and so on. Yeah, Town Chat Cafe. We were talking about that, and I haven't even had time to research that either. Sasha says because he's in the area beyond the end cap of the crawl space, in my speculation opinion. Really could be. I mean, it is weird that they hit on the pond and they were so quiet about that too. Always on Empty says, if I had a home like theirs, I would not let my child live in the front. Yeah, I know. I agree with Always on Empty. I agree. Yeah, that's a great point. All the way across the home from you, when your son has, rare chromosome deletion, was recently diagnosed with autism, and then also has a pocket of fluid on his brain. What if he needed something in the middle of the night? Would they be able to hear him across the house if something had happened? That's a great point. Great point. A crawl space is a bit complex, Sasha says. Yeah, and I agree, Sasha. I don't know a whole lot about them. Starflower says Katie could have put Sebastian in a crawl space by herself. Have you ever tried to move someone when they are passed out? Yeah, good point. That's a good point, Starflower. And even way back when I was younger and I first had my daughter, I did my CNA and did nursing and stuff. And I'll tell you, it's not easy to move someone even when they're helping you. But let alone passed out. Oh yeah. Or if they can't, help at all. You're right. Sasha says it's to detach the home from the sewer and direct the water to the front. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that, Sasha. Carla says Starflower, he wasn't hidden in the home. The lights took him to the car sitting down the street. I agree with that. I really do. That's still my number one go-to theory. Absolutely, I agree. YouTuber says, when and where was this photo on the left taken? So this photo on the left was taken allegedly at the Texas Roadhouse, and I got it off of X. It was sent to me like this, but when I asked where the photo came from, it was on X. Yeah, so, and apparently this is a photo of a gentleman who was at the bar at the same time, Sebastian and Katie were at the Roadhouse. SI officer says, I agree to the point in regards to friendship ties. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Have a great day, Kumbani. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Sasha says the location explains all bizarre behavior also, 100%, and a lot of leakage. Yeah. YouTuber says, SI officer, good to see you, girlfriend. Thanks. Apart from the glasses, it looks like Edgar, in my opinion. Remember, he weighed a lot less than he does now. Yeah, absolutely. And KJ Mac brought up a really good point that his mouth is open in this one on the left and the one on the right. So, his face is going to look more elongated with his mouth being open, SI officer says, I believe the glasses are to throw us off, YouTuber. Absolutely. Well, and it's even throwing us off now because we can't compare his eyes. We've compared everything else, his chin, his lips, his nose, even his cheeks. I will say his cheeks in the general, shape of, the way his face is, I think matches, in my opinion, but we can't see his eyes. And unfortunately, we can't see his ears. And I'd like to see his ears in both of them. Mitty, well, now that's solved. Where's the arrest? Exactly. Yeah, exactly, Meg. We're trying to figure out if it's CP or his stepbrother, allegedly. They need to go back to the retention pond. Yeah, they very well could, Michelle. I mean, keep in mind the end cap beyond the 6-foot hole in the crawl space is covered with plastic as to direct the water to the front of the home. Very thick plastic. Interesting. And they found that plastic roll. C. Taylor was telling us about that. I believe it was C. Taylor. Carla says, Sasha, my crawl spaces, I have 2 because the new addition, and it has its own, just space under your house where your main sewer exists and all the water lines running to the bath kitchen, all plumbing. Normal guy, my ass. Lori. Yeah, exactly. KJ Max says, do those homes have a step system to attach to the sewer? That's a combination of a septic and a sewer, and it's often in more rural areas, but still allows sewer connection. That's a great point. I'm thinking it was all sewer, in my opinion. But because I'm guessing, because would there still be a septic tank? KJ Mac, I wonder. Lainey says, in my opinion, the crawl space door was there the flashlight came from, and they needed to push the narrative that he was in that pond because he's autistic. Of course, he went in the pond. Well, Lainey, I agree. I mean, that was, my initial thoughts as well. Really was. Plumbing runs by the floor joints and connects to the main sewer. Sasha says, so in my opinion, Sebastian may be under the Proudfoot's home in the crawl space beyond the end cap. Interesting. Well, one of these times, Sheriff Craddock came out and said that he doesn't believe that Sebastian left the home. There's no evidence that he ever left the home, I guess is more accurate. And including her friend Elle, too, that drives the VW. Yeah, that's true, Town Chat. 100, Carla, especially with him not going to prison being his priority, in my opinion. The boss is pure BS, in my opinion, YouTuber says. All those houses would have to connect to the main, Mitty says. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, because I didn't see any septic tanks or anything around. But Sasha says, does the boss drive a sedan? He seems to have been with CP that night. Good question, Sasha. And KJ Max says people often confuse a step system of being one or the other, but it's a combination of sewer and septic that serves a role in sloping housing developments. They are in unincorporated areas. And theirs does have that, because it is, the area around there isn't, really like flat or anything. It's definitely hilly, right? There's a hill. There was one up on the construction site, Lady, can you compare his hands and fingers to the video of KP and CP holding hands in the video? Oh, yeah, maybe so, huh? That's a good idea. Write it down on this one. Okay, that's such a great idea, Mitty. KJ Max says, I had a step system in a fancy development and it was connected to the main via the step system if that makes sense. We had a tank as a part of the system, but still connected. Oh, okay, KJ Mac. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. MIDI sausage fingers. Miss Justin's. I know, I did too. I saw Justin was on YouTuber, yes, but Chris would be there. He would want to be the one to cause this pain to Sebastian. He would want to see his face and let him know what's going to happen. He's evil. Yeah, I agree. Oh, hey, perfectly imperfect boy mom. Good to see you. Good to see you. Mitty says, I understand, KJ. I had business installing sewer and water lines. Oh, cool, Mitty. Yeah, so you guys are real familiar. I'm only familiar with, like, whether somebody has that or not, and then if they need it inspected or not. And that's about, my knowledge doesn't go very, very far with that. I'm no expert whatsoever, but, I know the difference between the systems and things like that. So yeah, but I don't know that I've dealt with like a step system before, like you're talking about, KJ. So that's really interesting. Thank you for bringing that in too, because we don't know what really they have. And Sasha says, well, when you get it and it's tight, then you get to a 6-foot hole, then you get to the end cap, then you get to the area that can fit a big log in a pipe area, then the water overflows in the front to the sewer. Interesting. Well, Perfectly Imperfect Boy Mom, we're just kind of looking at this. This is a guy that resembles Chris or possibly one of his relatives, in our opinion here. We're kind of just speculating. Of course, we have the picture of Chris on the right. Now, the guy on the left is in the Texas Roadhouse video, and it's a still shot from that video. And Sasha says, and retention pond, I asked for the crawl space expert if you access the crawl space from the inside, the home has said maybe, but still going to be tight at first, then it gets bigger. So yeah, maybe. I see. Okay. So the crawl space expert is saying that if you do have access to the crawl space from inside the house, that it is going to be a tight fit, but that it does get bigger. Okay, very interesting, Sasha. Thank you. Meg says, ugh, maybe they left the house because the plumbing didn't work. Interesting thought there, Meg. That's true. That could be a reason why. Mitty says, no, I was really inquiring. I'm not sure of locality type in that subdivision. Could check tax records maybe. Oh, yeah, maybe so, huh? And there you have it, Sasha says. Lainey says, in my opinion, LE was outside in the backyard with a 3D scanner camera and didn't use forensics on the home. It's because they have something that makes them believe he was taken or never was there, in my opinion. I can definitely see that too. Yeah, I can see that, Lainey, definitely. Both of the crawl spaces have a door in the floor to access the crawl space, and each has an exit outside, says Carla. Oh, Lori's gonna take her doggy out. I believe CP was the niece. Carter, you ready to ride or what, Sasha? Carter, you ready to ride or what? Come on, Carter. We're calling you. We need you. We need you. You guys are so funny. Always on Empty says all the interviews, court dates, CP has many faces. Really, really, really does. Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. We never know what we're going to get with either one of them. Seth is really a constant. We know what we're going to get with him most of the time, I think. Unless he says something, that we're not expecting, but it's never anything that's like, it's more or less shocking details from, the case, because he's really trying to figure out what happened to Sebastian, in my opinion. And Sasha says, not wrapped in plastic. The end cap is wrapped in very thick plastic. Well, and that's what they were saying, that there was some very thick plastic that was found by narc divers and CJ and them and Trey. And Mitty says, well, an existing very simple, but these are all new homes. I say still fairly easy with misutility, and yeah, absolutely, Mitty, and proper area to that doesn't use their own like town, etc. Yeah, thanks, Mitty. That's interesting. Luke is Lucy and Luke. Mitty says, I'm sure if it's a town owned, they wouldn't allow that. Yeah. It's going to be a little different there, I would think. Even more names, Lori says. Oh, even more names for CP and KP. I know, I'm going to get them mixed up. I know I am. I'm going to be like, is it Edgar or Lucy? And Sasha says it would take two to maneuver. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he did get in trouble, SI officer, like a riddle. Mitty says they have trash pickup, so they could have trash water. What do you think, KJ? They do have trash pickup. We know that. It doesn't look that rural to me either, Mitty. It looks pretty... Well, I mean, it's wooded all around. Like if we kind of look at that, the aerial view, that little neighborhood and development and stuff is surrounded by woods. But you also have Long Hollow Pike, which is a really, really busy road during the day. Right, but it goes right by the school. And KJ Max says, Mitty, they are unincorporated, I believe, hence the county sheriff as their LE body, as opposed to Hendersonville. They fall under the county instead. Yeah, that's a great point, KJ Mac, that they would be unincorporated. And that's why they would have called the sheriff, and that would have been their jurisdiction, not Hendersonville. So they would be under the county. Yeah. Thank you for that clarification, because that makes sense. And Perfectly Imperfect Boy Mom says the mustache, the left is fuller. CP doesn't grow much hair in the middle. Oh, yeah, good point. He's real clean cut on his beard in the picture on the right, I will say. That looks like a well-maintained, beard, in my opinion. I'm weird when it comes to beards. I'm not a fan. This level of beard is perfectly fine. Any level further than this level is not okay with me. And that's just my, opinion. Mitty says, oh, okay, didn't realize that. Sasha says, no, they have a crawl space and the end cap to the direct, the water to the front. It's a bit complex. It detaches the home from the sewer in the back and flows to the retention pond. Carla says, well, Yellow Coat never got food. He got to the DoorDash, he got DoorDash from Katie. Pink Sweater was at the bar, must have ordered food as well and picked something up from the employee exit. Green Hoodie and Katie had a secret handoff all around the same time. Yeah, it was very bizarre. Lots of characters in the same spot. Sasha says, yes, Eric Craddock is correct. Yeah, well, there's no proof he said that he left the home, Interesting that you're bringing that up. Sasha says Sebastian never left the home. He's under the home, in my opinion. They can't afford for a cadaver dog to start digging in the crawl space, especially now, because the plastic could be degrading. The plastic is very important. I agree, SI officer. That's what's really drawing me to what Sasha's saying as well. That's really, really important, in my opinion. Especially because we know it's been found. What baffles me is about Texas Roadhouse is why all of these alleged are involved and people stood, waited, moved in sight of the CCTV camera. Surely they'd know that they'd be recognizable despite their brilliant disguises, in my opinion. Brilliant is in air quotes. I'll just put that up there. Yeah, it does baffle me too about the Texas Roadhouse. Why all these people, right? It's all weird. Like they're all out of place, right? And that's why I kind of call them characters. I'm not trying to be rude, but I also think they're characters in my opinion too, probably because what you're saying, YouTuber, absolutely. Like these brilliant disguises, it seems like they're disguising themselves. It definitely does. I mean, even if, especially if this is Chris and he's wearing glasses in the pic, you know, because I've never seen him wear glasses. Now that doesn't mean that he doesn't wear glasses, obviously, or that he never has, or that he never got a pair of readers and put them on and went to the Texas Roadhouse allegedly on, you know, February 25th, 2024. Yeah, Sasha, I definitely see what you're saying. Looks like the city of Hendersonville. All right, guys, I'm going to put this brief little video on. I got a text. Give me 1 second. And I'm going to put this brief little video. A little party up for you guys.
Weezer, there's someone I'd like you to meet.
That looks like an autopsy.
Laughter through tears is my favorite emotion. I'm so mad I don't know what to do. I want to know why. Lord, I wish I could understand. I just want to hit something. I want to hit it hard.
Here, hit this. Go ahead, Malin. Slapper.
Are you crazy?
Hit her.
Are you high, Clary?
We'll sell t-shirts saying I slapped Weezer Boudreaux. Hit her. Weezer, this is your chance to do something for your fellow man. Knock her lights out, Malin.
Let go of me.
But y'all don't say that.
Malin, you just missed a chance of a lifetime. Have a chickapin parish and give the eye teeth to take a whack at Weezer.
You are a pig from hell.
Weezer, I was just kidding. Come back. Oh.
Weezer, what brings you here? Shut up.
Not a very Christian thing to do.
Oh, and now you gotta lighten up.
If you can't say anything nice about anybody, come sit by me.
Looks like two pigs fighting under a blanket.
A girl is fair game until there's a ring on it. And I mean a wedding ring. An engagement ring just means she's ready for one more mistake. Okay, this is perfect. Watch this.
Sometimes I wish I was smooth like Zahid. Of all the people I know, he's the best at girls.
Thanks, Weezer. Nothing like a good piece of ass.
And that's how you do it. Now, I'm gonna go hide in the back because that guy said he's gonna kick my ass and he has a neck tattoo, so...
I am pleasant. Damn it! I just saw Drum eating in this morning at the Piggly Wiggly, and I smiled at the son of a bitch, for I could help myself.
Honey, time our two
till you realize it's marching across your face.
Okay, guys, so I just checked my messages, and someone just sent me this, and I wanted to kind of show you this right here. And you might kind of have to zoom in a little bit. Let me see. Let me see if I can't zoom it in a little bit here. Okay, let's look at this one. Hold on a second. Let me replace this one. Bear with me 1 second here. Okay, so we're looking at this white box here. Sorry, I moved my mic a little bit. White box here. Okay, so here we see this little white box. I don't know what that is. I'm not familiar with that. And I don't know if that's like a tank of something. Or what that is. And sorry if I'm skipping over comments a little bit here. I'm just going to try to get to the end over here. So here's that little box. And then I want to show you also, let me crop this one. Okay, so we have that, and then let me delete that, delete this. All right, let me pull these other two images in. We'll take a gander at them. So then we have that white box that's right outside the garage, right? And then we have outside this big like manhole or kind of like a, I guess it would be a manhole of some sort, right? Just kind of where the water would, come down the street and into, a sewer drain, if you will. And then this is an interesting, like, door. This is the bonus room. And it's got a little door. You can see the skylight. And then all the way over to the right of your screen, you'll see that door. So these are all really little interesting pictures here to kind of take a look at. Hey, I am Two Bear. Drainage great. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good to see you. There we go. Drainage great. But drainage great. Sasha says the crawl space needs to be searched properly, not with thermal imaging completely dug out. There it is. Sasha says, okay, great. Great. Yeah, that puts it into perspective. Thanks, Mag. Thank you. KJ Max says, SI officer, those details are beyond my experience or knowledge, so when it would matter, they are close in the thermal imaging. How deep can it see? That's a good question. That's a good question, KJ Mac. How deep does it go? Oh, that's electrical, Baba Rose, that little white box is? Okay. KJ Max says, PSA, wash your hands, people, and only flush with your toilet lid closed. Toothbrushes in the bathroom also have this problem. Is that... They sure don't want anyone in their house, and that's the reason for it. I can see that, definitely. Definitely. KJ thermal imaging is pretty accurate and detailed from what I've seen, but in a large pipe, I don't know. Is that what we're speculating? Yeah, basically, that maybe Sebastian could have been possibly disposed of in that way. Ugh. Ah. Mitty says I always like the goatee, beard, or mustache, but I guess I'm the Tom Selleck and Matt Houston era. Mitty, I just don't like. I mean, like beards are fine, like when they're well kept and stuff, but like, and like shorter. But if they're like the really long ones, I'm like, ooh gosh, what's in there? What's hiding in there? They scare me a little. Yep, come on, Carter. We're about to pull up. Sammy. We need a search warrant. The crawl space had not been searched thoroughly. I don't remember them searching it thoroughly, and this is kind of making me wonder here. Especially that's a weird little part. I don't know if that goes to like an attic area or what that goes to. It's really interesting though, nevertheless. All of those areas were checked. Not sure with what proper tools. Good point. I Am Tuber says that door is weird. I would say it goes to the attic above the garage, but the bonus room is above the garage. Yes. Yes. So, strange, right? I'll pop it back up. That little door. Yeah, Meg says, yes, that's the room above the garage with that little door. Yeah, so what does that go to? Like another little attic area? Like, is there an area beyond that kind of meets? Because that would be above the garage. So is there another area beyond that would be above Chris and Katie's bedroom, perhaps? And I Am Two Bear says, is the bonus room the full footage of the garage, though? Or, yeah, exactly. Thanks, I Am Two Bear. That's exactly what I was thinking. Is the bonus room the full footage of the garage? I'm guessing that it is, and then beyond that might be extra storage, like AKA the attic space above Chris and Katie's master. Little closet. Yeah, looks like storage, right. But see, it wouldn't be called a bonus room if that was a closet. It's non-conforming and that's the reason why it's called a bonus room and not a bedroom, right? And then also it has a window, so those are, I mean, it could be perceived as more of a skylight than a window, and that's what could also make it non-conforming in terms of realtor language and how you would describe about that, describe that, and also how you would list the home and how many bedrooms it has. KJ Max says the little door in the bonus room is a small space in the dormer. You can store things in it. We did. Okay, great. Thanks, KJ Max. That's what I was thinking. It has to be like a little storage, right? Or like a little attic or something. Lady Freedom, check your email for a better image of CP. It's creepy. Okay, I will. Thanks, Perfectly Imperfect Boy Mom. Let me look. All right, just 1 second here. Yeah, for Christmas stuff and whatnot. Hey, James Coover, good to see you, hon. 1 second here, guys. Oh, that is a good one. Okay, let me take a look here. Add this one in. Yeah, because this one looks a lot more like a rounded type of a beard. I swear he put Just for Men in that beard, you guys. He had to have. He Just for Men the beard. He had to have. Thank you, Perfectly Imperfect Boy Mom, because, yeah, like, that one looks a lot like attic access for storage. Okay, yeah. Okay, Sasha says the crawl space door is outside is all I know. Town Check Cafe says, oh, LOL, I thought you were talking about the little door on the wall. Yeah, that's the right one. Yeah, the little door on the wall. Yeah, that one right there. And Baba Rose says, my upstairs is a similar, my upstairs is a room similar to that I have a full door. It is where my air duct work, hot water heater, etc. is. Oh, okay, that could be too, right? Such a cute picture of Sebastian. Notice the t-shirt says refuse to quit. So ominous. Yes, I know, exactly. He is so cute. He's got that big old smile over there. James Cooper says it's not a closet because on the other side of that door, it's unfinished attic, more or less. I used to install carpet in houses like this. Yeah, I agree. It's like the attic, like where you can see like the joists and stuff. Yeah, I see what you're saying, James. And Sasha says the crawl space goes deep under the home. People keep that in mind. We will, Sasha. Thank you. Yeah. I Am Two Bear says a water heater upstairs, Baba Rose. That is very odd. Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking it might be more like maybe the attic space, possibly. Sasha says the expert spends a lot of time in crawl spaces. SI officer says, there you go. Yes, for the men that bear that beard, yes, now it's just going gray from all the stress. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, because he's very, very, it's so dark in that picture. So dark. So dark. And the beard has a hole in the middle. It's not real. I noticed that too just now. You're right, I Am Two Bear. Look at that hole in the middle of the beard. What is he doing? That's weird. Weird. Not a lot of time in crawl spaces. Yeah. Or not a lot of time. SI officer says not Photoshop, it's just dark, bad lighting, and then on top of that, it's got his dark beard on his hat. Oh, because of the shadow of his hat. I see. James says, and that white box outside by the end of the driveway is either for irrigation system or electrical, for like phone service or other electrical for like internet or other. Oh, I see, James. Okay, thank you. KJ Max says, yes, Sasha Johnson, our crawl space was the entire footprint of the house. We had similar size access door to the outside. Wow. Really interesting. The expert spends a lot of time in there. SI officer says they both have aged a lot quicker than most presidents since the night till now. In my opinion, since that night until now, in my opinion, stress will get you just speak up, set it free, don't live with the burden. Allegedly, yeah, I agree. Holding on to that is a great burden, SI officer, a really great burden, and I agree. It'd be a great relief for them to release that. Absolutely. Yeah, not a closet. No. Especially kind of how it's situated, so up tall and stuff like that on the wall. Yeah. Yeah, perfectly imperfect boy mom says, I am too embarrassed. The shadowing from being in a darker room. The pic is from Chris Proudfoot is innocent. Oh, okay. Is that why there's like an American flag right there? Okay. Yeah, and I see the lighting, the light in the back, and then he's kind of dark. Yeah, I see that. Looks like he borrowed it from Danny. Town chat. Vanna says he's got makeup on his eyes. Here's something wrong with this guy. He looks it looks like he does have like eyeshadow and then lashes. Baba Rose says, I have a big house. I have 2 of those attic spaces. Okay, yeah, I floored mine. Yeah, okay, thank you. Sasha says maybe it's another way to get to the crawl space. Maybe. Could be. I didn't realize they went the whole entire, length of the house either, the print of the house. Yeah. James says, I have a question if anyone can tell me about a photo. Sebastian is sitting inside a car, and in the background there is a silver car parked. Does anyone know where that picture was taken? Because in my opinion, the silver car in the background looks a lot like the 3 a.m. car. Oh, I don't know which picture you're talking about. KJ Max says, definitely not a closet. It's such a small space. We shoved small boxes of toys in our bonus room dormer space. It was a playroom for the kiddos. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good idea. Ivana says, OMG, I just cracked up so damn loud. Or SI officer told Ivana that. James, I read that one. James, Sasha says, now we know the exact blueprint of the crawl space and we can search it now. 100% my opinion. Yeah, absolutely, Sasha. I think that's just such a great, topic you brought into the conversation. And I think it's important to, really dive into that. And especially with what you've talked about with the expert, I think that, it's definitely something law enforcement needs to, get a handle on and check it out. I just seen it today when BHB was talking about it. Okay, yeah, James. Perfectly Imperfect Boy Mom says, also newer homes typically don't have access to the crawl space inside the house, but they could easily lift the carpet and cut a hole in the floor. That's true. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that one is really interesting to me too. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, YouTuber. And Town Chat Cafe says, in my opinion, the 3 a.m. car could be a Dodge Intrepid because he has the full tail light bar that goes across like the Dodge Durango does as well, in my opinion. Yeah, I remember that. I remember how it goes that full length. You're right. Yeah, Town Chat Cafe, absolutely. Well, guys, I better head off of here because we've been on for almost 3.5 hours now. But man, we've had some great conversations tonight and really have brought a lot to light. I think, especially, thank you so much, Sasha, for being here and going over this with us. I mean, this your findings. I really appreciate you. That's really interesting. And now I keep thinking in the back of my mind what Craddock said about how there was no proof that Sebastian left out that night, right, of the house, that they didn't have any proof of that. Because, I would say, well, arguably there was the 3 a.m. lights, but then again, I mean, why weren't they searching all of that, SI officer says, in my opinion, there is a lot that needs to be checked in that house. They could have made adjustments to their home for protection. Things could have been pre-planned, pre-built. Who knows? Military family. Absolutely, SI officer. I agree. Sasha says, see, I can't fathom Sebastian being at the Roadhouse at 6:30 p.m. and in the crawl space by 6 a.m. It's just absolutely unfathomable and so disturbing, but I think extremely possible. Oh, God be with us. Yeah, I can see how it would be extremely possible, and how and I understand how upsetting it is to think about that as well. Yeah, that's absolutely horrible. James says that LE had told CP that they believed Sebastian would not be coming home because no longer alive, and allegedly was told this a while ago before some interviews. But of course, the source it came from is questionable, right? Because it came from CP. Yeah, absolutely. I see what you're saying, James. Thanks for letting us know. So I did hear a little bit about that, but I wasn't 100% on it. So thanks, thank you, Lori. James says that Ellie, he told CP that they believe Sebastian was... Oh, sorry. I missed that one. Thank you, SI officer. Thanks so much for being here. Yes, you guys stay safe. I love you guys. Well, Sasha says, well, it's time for Craddock and Carter to search the crawl space thoroughly in a proper manner. Absolutely. Yes, thank you, Lori. Thank you guys all for being here. James says, which was CP that had said this allegedly, and if it's true, then why did they not tell Seth the same thing when they had talked to Seth and Tony that made them believe that LE was on it? Yeah, I agree, James. Yeah, they made him believe Ellie was on it. Yes, please, SI officer says, please keep us updated, Sasha, if you hear anything back from LE. Absolutely. I think that could be really a plausible thing. Perfectly Imperfect Boy Mom says, just a thought, he could have been sedated and stashed somewhere in the house and later passed on, explaining why KK started calm and now she's always crying. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah, absolutely. Because her demeanor has changed quite a bit. I agree, Thank you. Thanks, Sasha. Yeah, we would love to have that update. Thank you, guys. Thanks, KJ Mack. TBI blockchain. Well, you could always give them a call and see if you can't, send it directly to an agent, I hope everyone had a good night. Glad I was able to catch a live. We'll rewatch later. Love having you always, Perfectly Imperfect Boy Mom. And thank you all so much. Thank you, KJ. Thank you, everybody. I love you guys. Take care and stay safe out there. Say prayers. Hopefully this could be something really big, I think, and then also knowing that, allegedly maybe CP was in the area, so good night, Vana. Good night, James, guys. You all have a wonderful, wonderful night.